Hello and welcome to Checkpoint Podcast Stage 1.5. I am your host, Josh Boyles. I'm a broadcast journalism student at the University of Salford, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Owen Connolly. How are you today, my dude?
I'm good. Hi, my name's Owen Connolly. I'm a digital art student from the northeast of England, and yeah, it's great. We've taken a little bit of time off. Well, I wouldn't call it time off. I think we need to recuperate over so much news that's come out. Madness.
Well, we've taken a few weeks breaks out. I've been ridiculously busy over the last few weeks, and I kind of had a bit of a burnout and just needed to take a bit of a break. And as a result, we have a lot of big news to catch up on. We've got Google Stadia. What else? We've got Halo, Borderlands, epic stuff. Oh, it's gonna be a long podcast. If you're looking at your podcast player and it's 3 hours long, I apologise. Stick with us. I'm sure it'll be good.
Major props to the people who are able to get this out like weekly. You know,
I know. Like, I listened to like quite a lot of weekly podcasts, and like just having now like started to try and get like a weekly podcast out, I understand just how much work goes into it. Later on at the end of the podcast, I'm going to be talking a little bit about a new directive that I'm pushing towards as a result of the last couple of weeks. I've left my other job, so I am now officially unemployed. So my new woohoo. So my new directive is going to be pushing to create sort of loads of new YouTube content and kind of working it all into my portfolio. This podcast being part of that. So I'll talk a little bit about that later on at the end of the thing. So right, let's get into the news. First up, Google Stadia. In the time that we've been off air, we've had an entire new company enter the gaming industry with their own platform.
It's not just company. Like this is like this is 4D. Like you know,
it's huge. I mean, when you talk about Google, it's not as if it's like like Jen's sandwich shop down the road. It's it's the big boys. So Google have announced a new cloud-based streaming service called Google Stadia. It's like similar to Microsoft's xCloud thing. It's a console that's hosted on Google's data centers and then streamed via Google's very own fiber optic network. So this doesn't go across any sort of public networks. And basically you can just play games from anywhere via your... it's accessible via any Chrome-enabled device. That's a Chrome browser if you're on a PC or a laptop, your mobile phone, a Chromecast if you want to get it on your telly. Literally anything that you can access Google Chrome with, you can access Google Stadia. And the whole thing of this is that you can basically access games just by clicking on a link, like a web link, and you can... I think the whole thing was touted that if you click on a link, you can be in-game within like 5 seconds. And it sort of links in with all YouTube, Google's like YouTube ecosystem and all that sort of stuff. So it's supposed to be launching by the end of 2019. It uses already available Bluetooth controllers. So if you have like an Xbox controller or there's loads of mobile controllers out there on the market that connect to your phone. You can still use them. But they have also announced a Google Stadia controller, which instead of connecting via Bluetooth to your computer and then sending the connection to like over Wi-Fi, the Stadia controller has Wi-Fi built in, so it connects directly to the Google server, which is supposed to like reduce latency. I assume
that's kind of crazy. That's one bit that I didn't really read about this. That is, I suppose. I mean, it's not. It'll never be as good as wired, but
yeah. I mean, this is the whole thing with like with Google Stadia being like completely like with everything being hosted on a server. We'll talk a little bit later on about the implications of that, because of course latency is going to be a huge issue. Exactly. We already have a small amount of latency between like a console or a PC and the monitor with just like a wired connection. I mean, it's like you can get different monitors with like 1 millisecond response times, or like some like TVs have really notorious for having ridiculous response times. But yeah, adding thousands of miles of internet connection between that is obviously not going to do that any justice. So using the Stadia controller to directly connect to the server is we don't actually have any sort of real world like examples of how this will work, so we can't say for sure whether it will significantly impact the latency, but we'll have to wait and see for that. It looks pretty. I mean, it looks very similar to. It looks well designed. I mean, it looks very similar to like the Xbox One controller with the offset sticks. It's also got a couple extra buttons. So it's got a Google Assistant button and a capture button, so you can capture gameplay similar to the PS4 controller. Seems to be much more simple as well, because you can, because it streams obviously from the server. You can also clone that stream directly to YouTube. So if you're a live streamer, you can just, it makes content creation a lot easier. You can just sort of clip stuff, which is pretty easy. In terms of the technical specs, so it's been in development for 2 years. Project Stream was like a beta test that they did end of last year. I think it was like October time, where you could. It was only available in America, and you could stream Assassin's Creed Odyssey via Google Chrome. That was when they did that test. It was 1080p, 60 FPS with stereo sound. This is supposed to launch by the end of 2019, and at launch it's supposed to be 4K, 60 FPS, HDR with surround sound. And in the future, because this whole platform is it's like developed to sort of scale upwards as time goes on, they reckon that they'll be able to get up to 8K, 120 FPS, and everything, all the benefits that come with that. I mean, just thinking about stream. I mean, we can stream Netflix at 4K, like 60 FPS, whatever now. But that like latency isn't an issue there, because you're just loading a video. You don't have to send things backwards and like controller connections backwards and forwards. Google reckon that you're going to need a 25 megabits per second internet connection to stream 4K steadily at launch. Which, I mean, for me, living in Manchester with like city centre with a decent internet connection, that's fine for me. But I know that as soon as I go home to the sticks, living in Northumberland, that's definitely not going to be something that I can handle, at least.
Exactly.
I don't know about you.
Like, at least not yet. That sort of, it's all a matter of when it comes to stuff like this. And honestly, we can tie this into the sort of stuff we want to go into at the end of this subject, like about how this is moving forward and how it may leave certain areas of gaming and just technology behind. Ultimately, though, they talk about launch 4K 60 FPS HDR surround sound, which is amazing, right?
Imagine thinking about we've only just recently been able to sort of 4K's only just recently become the mainstream for consoles with Xbox One X and PS4 Pro. I only recently bought a 4K telly, but because they're becoming cheaper and cheaper all the time. But whether internet's caught up with that sort of standard, I'm not quite sure we're there yet. I mean, you hear in America, quite a lot of areas in America don't have, outside of the big cities, obviously, don't have decent internet. A lot of them still have data caps. Data caps where you can only use 300 gigabytes per month. I used to have one of that. I remember when I Halo 4 Spartan Ops. That was my first sort of encounter with big DLC expansion updates, and I remember downloading all of them, because there was an error or something on mine, so I had to keep downloading them over and over again, and I think I downloaded 100 gigabytes worth of data over the course of 3 days, and then I remember my dad came in and he was like, I've got a bill here because we've gone 70 gigs over our data cap. Turned out we had a 30 gigabyte data cap on our old crappy talk deal, which was completely stupid.
God,
they have that in America.
I hope that wasn't too much.
I think my dad managed to negotiate it down, and then we got on a different deal immediately.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, I think data caps are pretty much out. I don't think they're prevalent here in the UK anymore. But I know throttling is pretty prevalent for Virgin customers.
Is a problem.
I don't experience it too much here. I'm with a student internet provider, but I've heard reports of Virgin internet being at peak times you just get absolutely ruined.
Oh yeah, it's the full Branson.
So yeah, in terms of power, this is the really interesting thing, I think. So the console thing that's hosted on the server has a custom AMD GPU with 10.7 teraflops of power, which means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, that literally means nothing. What's he called? Phil Spencer would love that.
Oh yeah, it's just teraflops is just a buzzword that literally means it's just a thing to throw around on an E3 stage,
it's got
basically.
50 pixies in it.
Yeah, exactly. But if you want to sort of put that into perspective, PS4 has something like 4.7 teraflops, and Xbox One has 6 point something, whatever. The Stadia one, 10.7, is more than PS4 and Xbox One X combined, which is pretty crazy. It's also got a hyper-threaded 2.7 gigahertz CPU and 16 gigs of RAM. But the thing about this being hosted on a server is that Google, if you want more power to, like, obviously this is like built to scale up to 8K, they can link these together and run them in like SLI or whatever, and you've got essentially like unlimited power here. Like there's the scope to increase this drastically as the years go on, and obviously as hardware advances. But it's not just for like driving prettier graphics in games. They also talked about how this can be used to basically like make developing games, like certain types of games, possible that weren't before. So you think about battle royale games. We typically have like 100 players. There's talk of battle royales with potentially thousands of players. This is going like PlanetSide. You remember PlanetSide 2?
Yeah.
Like scales like that. And also distributed physics with like they talked about this with Crackdown 3 way back in like 2014, 2015. And I don't even know if it was that prevalent when Crackdown released the other month. The whole like distributed physics stuff where like buildings can collapse in multiplayer and whatnot. But they showed some tech demos about how that could work, which is pretty interesting. There's also some like sharing features. So as I said, you can simultaneously send like a different stream to YouTube. Couch co-op is now much easier because couch co-op it's kind of been a dying art, because obviously if you think about trying to render a whole other camera within that world on just the same hardware, that can be quite difficult. But if you're just using off-site servers to stream a different video feed, that doesn't become an issue anymore. So couch co-op is basically, it's like not a problem anymore. A really interesting thing was state share. So this was, you can essentially create like a save file that you can send to like friends or distribute on Twitter or whatever, and you can like create challenges or whatever. So I think we created like a scenario. So say if you were playing Dark Souls, for instance, and you were having struggling with a boss with a certain character build, you could like create a state share, send it to a friend, and say, here, have a go at this boss, see if you can do it. And you can just click on that link and load it up and have a go. So there's some really interesting. They've got a developer on stage to talk about it, and it could be quite interesting. If I think we could like start to see games that are specifically designed around this sort of feature, like around social sharing and all that sort of thing. There's also crowd player. Was it? I think I've typed this wrong. Crowd play. Which is for streamers. So if streamers who are like playing, I think they showed NBA 2K or whatever. Streamers on Twitch, they quite often play with like viewers and stuff. This makes it a lot easier. So you can just sort of like click a link and then you enter like a waiting room in a lobby, and then you can streamers drag people in, whatever. It makes things much more simple, and that's all accessed via just clicking a web link. So it's like pretty simple. They also said that it's going to be full cross. They want this to be fully cross-platform, so you should be able to play with people on Xbox, PlayStation, whatever. And they also said that they want save files to be transferable, although this is up to developers to implement that functionality. Although they mentioned that they are fully open to it.
Yeah, it's also a very good move to say that you are in favor of that, because then it prompts the other companies to kind of have to say yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is the sort of thing that we've been going for recently with, Microsoft have been quite open about it. Nintendo a little bit with Microsoft with, Nintendo have been partnering with Microsoft on Minecraft and things like that. I think Rocket League as well. I don't know. I think Nintendo's cross-platform on Rocket League. And Sony.
I'm not so sure.
I'm not too sure about that one. But Sony is only recently coming around on the whole cross-platform thing. Fortnite, that was the one I was going for. That's a big one. So Sony's recently coming around on it, but yeah, Google coming out of the gate and just saying, look, we want this to be like, we want this to mesh with our competitors is quite a bold move, but it's good, I think. The main thing that I sort of took away from this presentation, I think, was the lack of games that they had. They talked the talk about all this hardware and stuff and how it was great, but the only sort of real game of note that they brought out was Doom Eternal. They got someone from id Studios to come out and talk about that a little bit. That was the only real big game they had. They have announced a new studio called Stadia Games and Entertainment, which is a first-party game studio developing games specifically for Stadia, and that's being headed up by Jade Raymond, who's an industry veteran. She's known for founding Ubisoft Toronto, Ubisoft Toronto, and EA Motive Studios. She also has games like Assassin's Creed under her belt. So yeah, they didn't really talk too much about games that are coming, which worries me. I mean, they started out this whole press conference by saying, I think the head of Google came out and said, "I'm not much of a gamer," which is a fantastic way to start your big corporate thing.
Fantastic way to start, isn't it?
We're doing a whole we're investing massively in this brand new gaming division. I don't play games, but we are investing.
That is an issue though that genuinely runs through. I think it's an issue that genuinely has run through the heart of many gaming related issues and sort of mismanagement. Is there's so much money in game. It is the most profitable media form in the world, and as such, businessmen and women want a slice of the pie, but they have no idea what they've invested in. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Well, I think that was the thing with LucasArts when Disney acquired Lucas. Was it? Disney acquired Lucas. The whole Star Wars thing. And LucasArts, the game developer, they were working on Star Wars 1313, and then that got scrapped because Disney was looking at all the live service games and thinking, well, we want something like this, and you're not giving us that. You're giving us a single player RPG. And that's not what we want. We would look at the big boys like Destiny and Fortnite and whatever, and we want that, and that's not that. So get rid of it. So it is big head studio bosses that don't really know much about the game. The gaming industry is it's quite a prevalent thing. We might talk a little bit about that at the Bioware section a little bit later on. The other thing that they didn't talk about was any pricing. There was literally nothing about pricing. I mean, this can only be a subscription-based thing, right? I mean, you can't. There's no box. There's no console box or anything that you can own. There's no physical copies of games that you can own. I mean, the only reasonable thing is a subscription.
It would need to be a subscription
model.
service, because if it wasn't, and you had to buy each game individually, then so many of these features are basically pointless.
Yeah, exactly. Like all the state share stuff, and yeah, exactly. You make a good point. They've not mentioned any price yet, and I think because Apple are going into a similar gaming branch at the minute. It's not particularly streaming based, but Apple are sort of heading up a new gaming division after their last announcement, and I think either one of them is just waiting for someone else to jump the gun and announce a price. Because I don't think they want if someone comes out and says, "Oh, it's going to be £20 a month," and then people say, "Oh, that's too expensive." So I think they're just sort of waiting for someone to test the market at the minute. Microsoft are also coming out with xCloud, which they said they're going to be talking a lot more about at E3.
Which will be interesting.
So yeah, it'll be very interesting. So yeah,
it's also nice. It's also nice that Google have made the move first, because this allows the other two to maybe change what they wanted to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I mean, we'll talk about this a bit later on again with Epic and stuff. Epic versus Steam, and having two competitors is okay. But now that we've got Google coming in, we've got Microsoft and Apple having three competitors coming in with a subscription service is really, really interesting, because it makes they actually have to think about their strategies and not just try and one up one other person, which is quite cool. So I mean, do you see this sort of fitting in with the way that you play games? Do you see yourself playing streaming games rather than playing them physically in the future?
Well, I've got some multiple notes about this that I do want to go through, because this is as I mentioned earlier. This is very much. This isn't just a new generation of hardware. This is a jump from 2D to 3D. It's that big. This, in theory, maybe not in practice, is going to be the main way that we process the games of the future, right? And something that was interesting that was mentioned earlier was this concept of very big worlds and living worlds, ones with many players at once, worlds that are just possible to be created because that processing power is now available. which is honestly the main limitation of gaming in many ways, and it's a limitation that other forms of media don't have. You don't have technical limitations. This concept, to me, is the first step towards proper, like, Ready Player One and, like, Sword Art Online style stuff.
Yeah, that sort of stuff.
Proper crazy games. And this is the step. You know, this is what I feel like is it. Because even with Moore's Law, it would take maybe 30, 40 years to reach that stage. And this has already come straight in. The one thing that I question about, the question I have about it is, what about regular hardware? Like, why, if this genuinely is the future and it is as powerful as it is, and of course pricing hasn't been announced yet, then what are they saying to people who have hyper expensive rigs? What are Nvidia and AMD saying about, you know, their commercially sold GPUs and CPUs? Like, are they still going to make them? Because what's the point if at some point in the future you're going to get, you know, streamable services that are massively better at, you know, a 1% of the price?
I mean, yeah, you make a good point about physical hardware, you know, sort of dying out. But I mean, as you say, this is the first step into, like, the future of games. I mean, personally, I don't see myself. I see myself maybe using Stadia more as more of like an, what's the right word for it? Like, as a complement to the way that I play games. You know, I have a decent PC rig. I've got a PS4 Pro, Nintendo Switch. I don't see myself abandoning those experiences, but I think I could see myself using Stadia to maybe access games where, you know, I couldn't take either of those three platforms. If I'm on the, I mean, the example that I keep thinking of about is because I've been playing through the Division 2 in the last few weeks. If I could just do some side missions or, you know, go in the dark zone for 10-15 minutes while I'm on the bus to uni, like via my phone, that would be a fine way to access it. But I don't see it when I come home at the end of the day and want to sit down with a decent game. I mean, I still see myself booting up a PC. Maybe that's just because, you know, I haven't seen the full potential of it yet, and I'm not totally convinced about the latency. I'm not quite sure. I mean, if anyone's going to do this properly, it's Google. They have the infrastructure for it. It's Google with a Microsoft at a close second. They have the infrastructure. They've got the fiber optic network all around the world. Microsoft is slowly building. In fact, Microsoft have built. It's funny because it's actually quite relevant to us locally, because in Northumberland, I went back up there like this weekend, and they're like digging up the A69, and it's because Microsoft are actually laying cables, fiber optic cables from the US to Europe, and it just so happens that it goes right through our hometown, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Google are the ones to do it, even if they don't have the experience, which, again, that's what worries me, is that Google just don't have the experience in games. But with Jade Raymond, you know, at the head of their studio, that kind of gives me confidence. The thing that doesn't give me confidence is that Google are very quick to abandon things that don't have a quick turnaround. I don't know. Do you remember Google Wave?
Nope.
Google Wave was Google's like brand new reinvention of messaging and email, and it was basically group chats is what it was, but in like 2012 when they weren't that big. That died out pretty quick. Google Glass, that's as dead as the dodo.
Plus.
You know,
Google Plus.
Oh yeah, Google Plus, exactly. If something doesn't work for them, they're very quick to abandon it. Although, I mean, there's a lot of money that has been invested in this. Well, they have a lot to throw around, I guess, but I think this is one that's definitely going to stick. Yeah, I think physical hardware will live on, at least for the time being. It's just merely a new method of convenience. This is the way that you can push games to literally the biggest market in the world. I think they mentioned on the press conference that 2 billion people have access to a Chrome-enabled device. Which, I mean, if you can already utilize, if you can push games to hardware that people already have on them, that's the market you're tapping into, I think. And it's not necessarily everyone's market is like it's not every game is not going to benefit from.
But how many
Stadia,
of those 2 billion people are running Chrome at 25 megabytes per second.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I play a lot of Twitch shooters, like Apex, Battlefield,
Yep.
Black Ops. They don't have a home. I mean, at the minute, they don't have a home on streaming hardware like this. The latency would just be too much. I think I heard they were showing off Doom Eternal on like the show floor at GDC, and I heard reports that latency was okay, but it still had a long way to go before it was somewhere reasonable. I mean, the other argument that this brings up is the argument of ownership, because this is a closed network. Which on the plus side gets rid of hackers. There's absolutely no hackers and cheaters. There's absolutely no scope for any of that. But it also does eliminate any modding. Modders have absolutely no scope for anything, because you never physically have access to the game files of anything anymore. And also, obviously, the argument of ownership. I mean, we don't think twice about owning movies or music anymore. We just stream them via Spotify and Netflix, and it's very rare. I mean, some stuff off Netflix gets taken off when you get annoyed about it for half an hour, and then it's fine. But games are much more substantial, I think, and they're much more expensive to continue hosting. And obviously they're much more likely to get taken away later down the line. Which, I mean, I was thinking about this earlier on. Like, I don't think twice about owning the music that I have on Spotify. I just pay a tenner a month, and it's I just listen to it. But games are, I don't know. I don't think I'm too ready to give up my ownership of games yet. And also, as we talked about the other week, there's game preservation. PT, remember Silent Hills? PT. Yeah. That's gone. Flappy Bird's gone. Just purely because there was no physical release and it was only digital. I mean, there's PS4s and iPhones that are going for like thousands of quid, just because they have PT and Flappy Bird on them. So, is this? I mean, if you release a game that's only digital on Google Stadia, how likely is it that it's going to die and lost to the ages? Which is a thing that I think they have to sort of conquer if they want this to be successful.
Absolutely. It's. I think in its current form, people are going to be treating it as as you say, a addendum to what they currently do, in gaming. I think the last thing that I kind of want to touch on with this is there is so many similarities, and it's also almost scary in a way. There are so many similarities with how that stage show went, kind of how it was being presented, the sort of atmosphere leading up to it, and leading up to E3 as well. Did this Stadia announcement not feel a lot like the original Xbox One announcement?
How do you mean similar? Just as in like going for something that's overly ambitious, or?
It felt sort of, I don't know. It felt
like unaware of the audience, maybe.
Well, unaware. Sort of felt sort of pie in the sky. Like, I feel like, as you said before, the person that comes in first to do this, the person being Google, are technically the one at the disadvantage, because as you say, Apple and Microsoft or even Sony can then just slide in and say, yeah, we're doing the exact same thing but it's less, or we're doing the exact same thing but it's more powerful.
Yeah, I mean there is the potential for that, but again, say competition is like best for consumer. We'll only have to wait and see how they try and improve things. And as they mentioned, say it's designed to be scaled up in the future. Whether it gets off the ground to begin with remains to be seen. I hope it does, because issues aside, it's just technically impressive, isn't it? I mean, can you imagine? I mean,
that's what I want. I don't care about.
I marvel at playing Zelda on the train on just like a handheld console. I mean, if I could play like freaking, I don't know, an even more powerful game, just streaming it to my phone would be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, this to me is just for the hyper top of games, like maybe public transport based stuff as well, but it's the technical aspect that this amount of power can create. That's what excites me about Stadia. Like, not the actual thing itself, just what it can
the
do.
Concept.
Yeah, like what it can do for just a game, forgetting the subscription service, just the technical. Like, I mean, you've got SLI. This is just, well, right. So we've got 10 PCs. Just glue them together. Why not?
Yeah. I think there's more. There is probably a lot more technical engineering that has to go into it than just sticking together. It'd be fine. But yeah, I get what you mean. It is incredibly impressive. Moving on from it's similar vein of game ownership and online stuff. Driveclub servers are to shut down in 2020. So PlayStation confirmed, I've written to Engadget here, but I managed to find the blog post earlier. So they confirmed in a blog post that the servers for Driveclub will be taken offline at midnight on March 31st, 2020. So this will revoke access to all multiplayer components, including online races, club representation, social sharing features, and access to online season pass content. The game will still be playable in an offline single-player mode with Season Pass content available there. You can still purchase the Season Pass on the store, which is a little bit weird. And the servers will be shutting down a mere 5.5 years after the game launched in October 2014. So again, this is sort of continuing the thread of how much of your games do you own if they rely so much on a live service. 5.5 years is, I mean, that's not long, really, is it, for something to shut down?
Well,
I mean, I don't know how many people are playing Driveclub.
Exactly. I only just remembered that there was 2 times I knew about Driveclub's existence: 2014 and now. Right.
Yeah.
So
I remember playing the VR version at a gaming event two years ago now. But yeah, that's my only experience with it.
I potentially might have a controversial opinion about this.
Okay, go on.
When it comes to game preservation, I think it's incredibly important that just with any media, like just talking as humanity, that any sort of art that we make needs to be preserved. It just needs to be. It needs to be accessible because, as people kind of are refusing to believe these days, art imitates life, and you need to keep it. You need to keep it as such because it's a sort of the time capsule in its own way, and
yeah,
you might think, well, what's the difference between a game like Driveclub going offline in 5 years, or let's say, for example, Sony were to come out and say, oh yeah, by the way, when 2020 comes around, we're stopping all support for all the Uncharted games on PS4. You won't be able to play them anymore. Like, ever.
What, in the single player? Well, yeah, that is a significant difference.
Well, yeah, it's like it's a big hypothetical, but if the game doesn't have a player base, which I'm pretty sure Driveclub won't do. It'll probably be around 100 to 200 players, I'd guess, something in that region.
I mean, it's difficult to gauge console player bases because I mean, so many people have them.
True.
That it always baffles me how many more people play Battlefield on console than they do PC. Completely different market, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, like it all comes down to a matter of if a company is not seeing a good turnaround in terms of how much money they're investing in this online server to keep it running, to keep updating the game despite what the player base is, and they're not getting continued funding from the player base, as in, like DLC or cosmetics or microtransactions or something like that, then I think something which is really important is to sort of separate yourself from this whole, the gaming companies are evil and they're taking games away. No, they're a business. This is a cost.
You gotta remember that.
This is a cost, and the cost does not justify any profit at all. So you have to go, we're literally throwing money away. And I don't want to talk about Driveclub as if, it's something that shouldn't be remembered, because it should. It's a game that existed, very pretty.
We learn from our mistakes.
Yeah. It's, but I mean, it's still a racing game at the end of the day, and I think there's no big hit here from it going offline. That's my kind of controversial opinion. I don't think this is that.
I see what you mean. I think the worry comes from seeing this situation happen with another game that might be a bit bigger and perhaps more beloved. Like if you can, did the Halo 2 servers gone offline yet? I think the original Halo 2 servers have gone offline.
They did.
But obviously, we've got Master Chief Collection to make up for that.
Well, firstly, they've got the Master Chief Collection, which Microsoft have specifically made so people can be playing Halo 2 again in a remastered version. And you also have to remember that a game that is as beloved as it is, it basically doesn't need big company support because private servers will always exist. Like Quake.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Doom, like the original Doom multiplayer, still has a player base. It's only like 50 to 60 people, like who regularly play it.
See, you say that, but that also relies on the game being physically available, which, going back to the Google Stadia stuff, because it's a closed system, no one has access to that. So if Google decide to just cull to cull any sort of multiplayer game from their thing, no one has any power to stop them. And there's no community support to try and, reinvigorate it in a community, mod spotlight or whatever, which I think is the big issue here. So, yeah, I mean, I never played Driveclub. I don't have much love for it, but if this were to happen to, say, maybe, but if the Battlefield 4 servers went offline, I'd be absolutely devastated.
Yeah, or like, even a game that I hadn't played in forever, like, if Halo 3 on Xbox 360 went offline, like, I mean, I'm never going to play it again. I'm never going to turn my Xbox on to play it.
No reason to.
Yeah,
but
plus I need to buy Xbox Live and fuck that. But
yeah, true.
I think it definitely comes down to a scenario by scenario basis. I think a game that is beloved, like something like Halo 2, is never gonna die off, because it's either gonna be remade, or there's gonna be a community passionate enough, with enough people still playing it to keep it afloat. And if a game like this, and I don't know what the player count's like, but I mean, I hate to think like a numbers man. I hate to be the Thanos of the Thanos of gaming here, but I think this is the right thing to do.
Sorry, I've just realised that's our podcast title for this week.
I don't want to be the Thanos of gaming.
Just Thanos of gaming.
Thanos of gaming. I mean that's basically what it is, isn't it? When they turn these servers offline. Are the Lawbreakers servers offline yet?
Oh, I don't. They were never active. Let's be real.
I know, but like, can you play it? I don't know. Like, there's only 20 people. Like, I think there's only 8 people on. So, at any one time, yeah, have a look.
Yeah, you keep going. I mean, you have to remember also, like, with community stuff, that the console market is completely different to the PC market. Well, again, because the consoles are much more closed off than they are. All right, would you like to have a guess at the peak number of players of Lawbreakers? The peak number of players for the last 30 days.
21.
Right, you've been a bit ambitious there. Go on, try lower.
7.
You're getting closer.
4.
Closer.
3.
Oh, you one off. It's 2.
Peak
players for the last 30 days. Peak players for March 2019
tragic.
was
That's just
2.
Cliffy B and his dog running it in the back room.
There was a peak in February. There was 64 people in February, and that was a vast improvement from January, which was 4.
Well, I'm amazed that there's been no sort of online community that's decided that they're gonna do like Lawbreakers nights, because I thought that it would be ripe for that.
The all-time peak was June 2017, which was 7.5K.
That's terrible for a peak. Yeah. That's horrible. Oh, dear.
Yes, I mean, for something like that, you can understand them turning off the servers, but
yeah, like no one's complaining. Like even the people who bought it.
It's really bad. My brother bought it, and then he kept saying like, "Oh, Josh, you're gonna get Lawbreakers." Like, yeah, I can see where this is going. No, I'm not.
It's sad reading the reviews of Lawbreakers, because all of them are like
Yeah.
negative reviews, but all of them say this is a fantastic game that you literally can't play, so don't buy it.
Yeah.
It's so unfortunate. But yeah, it's a situation by situation basis. It's hard to talk about because you're either the goodie or the baddie, but I think here, this is business.
Justified.
Yep, it's business and it's justified. And Driveclub, I'm sure someone loved you, but it wasn't us.
You can still play a single player, so he'll
Very
be
true.
fine. He'll be fine. Okay, moving on. Halo. Last podcast, we were getting very excited about the just mere potential of Halo coming to the PC.
The suggestion.
And a few, just like whispers. And it turned out it was a real thing. Halo is coming to PC in the form of the Master Chief Collection. So the game is going to include Halo ODST and, in a surprise announcement, Reach as well. So that's going to be 6. Owen had a genuine crisis. Well, actually, no, sorry, you didn't have a genuine crisis because what you were doing? Oh, yeah, that was right. Napping.
Yeah, that's the one.
Napping. So there's going to be 6 games in total. Reach is also coming to Xbox. In the multiplayer and Forge and Theatre components are all going to be free, and Campaign and Firefight will be paid DLC. I don't think there's a pricing on that yet, but you will have to pay to get that. So the PC... right, okay, I thought that the PC version was listed just like a single package, but I looked this up earlier, and... you can buy it as an individual package, but 343 have confirmed that you can download each game individually, but you can also purchase them individually on PC, which is a bit weird. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. They've not really provided any solid details on that yet.
I personally think that is so nice.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah, it's. We'll get onto that and why that's great in a minute. It's coming to Steam as well as the Microsoft Store, which is a bit of a surprise given it's Microsoft and they're not prone to releasing stuff on anything other than their own storefront. Also interestingly is that the games are going to be rolled out in chronological order, starting with Reach to ensure quality, which makes sense because these are games that are developed originally for the console, and PC optimization such as ultra-wide support, FOV sliders, uncapped frame rates are going to have to be sort of patched in and sort of worked in for a game that was originally designed for a console architecture that is wildly different to a PC architecture.
That is very true. However, I've got a problem with that. I've got a problem with them rolling them out in chronological order, because Reach being added to the Master Chief Collection would have been gigantic news even if it wasn't coming to PC. I would have been like, where do I get myself a Chief Xbox One? But if they're saying that they're starting with Reach to ensure quality, surely wouldn't you start with something like ODST or Halo 1 rather than the game that people are literally itching to see? Like, why would Reach be your test baby?
Yeah, that does open it up to sort of because obviously the Master Chief Collection had some horrendous launch technical issues on the Xbox One, and if you have those issues, those same issues on PC with Reach, kind of taints it a little bit.
I would have preferred release order.
Risky. Yeah, I mean, I would have. The main thing that annoys me is that Halo 4 is going to come out last, and that has the best multiplayer out of all of them.
Well,
but,
yeah, it does. It does, yeah. I was going to say Reach, but Reach has the best Forge.
Yeah, Reach has best Forge. 4 has best multiplayer, closely followed by 3 and Reach, I reckon. Yeah. that really dates us, doesn't it? If you ask anyone else, they'll say Halo 2 has the best multiplayer.
They'll say 2, yeah. And I think 2 is probably better than 3, but Reach is better than 2. I'm sorry, it is. Goodbye.
That's just the generation that we are. Yeah. We are the I generation. So.
Ugh. Don't call us that.
I hate that term, but I read that the other day and it made me laugh.
The I generation, as in iPad and stuff.
iPhone, yeah.
God, who wrote that? Is that Boris Johnson who wrote that? Sounds like...
Read it I'm reading a book called Digital Minimalism at the minute.
The I generation. Sounds like something Stuart Pearson would say from the thick of it.
I saw this news that Christ, can't get my words out today. This news came out today, actually. Xbox One just received an update for the Master Chief Collection, which has updated the servers to 60 Hz, which I think is part of the PC optimization. Previously, the multiplayer servers were... the client sent information at 15 Hz, and the server sent them at 30 Hz. Yeah, but the server sent it at 30 Hz. So this is sort of even that out, and it's now 60 Hz across the board, which is fantastic. I remember playing on Battlefield 3 servers at 10 hertz, and all the joys that brought with it.
I'm sure. I'm sure there were many situations of the counter knife where you were like, definitely,
counter knife,
definitely
dying around corners. Oh, it's just ridiculous. So Halo's been console exclusive since Halo 3 in 2007. Halo Combat Evolved and 2 saw Windows release dates in 2003 and 2004 respectively. They haven't announced any timescales as to when this is coming to PC yet, but they said they'll discuss more at South by Southwest, which I think has been and gone now. And I don't think I don't think they gave away too much. They'll more than likely talk about it at E3. I'm kind of hoping for like a mic drop moment of like Halo Reach available now on Steam, which would be the dream. But I also want to know
these days available now or available like in a month or something. That's what they do.
That's the dream. Part of me that worries about this is how far apart are these going to be spaced? Because I don't want to be seeing Halo 4 release in like 2022. Like,
no, I don't think it's going to be like that at all.
Yeah, but I mean, Life is Strange Season 2, I've been looking at the release dates for that. I mean, Episode 2 of Life is Strange Season 2 released like a month ago, and the first episode came out like October, November 2018. So they're having like 6-month gaps between those episodes, which I think is just ridiculous.
These episodic games are starting to worry me. I would not want to be working on an episodic game right now, especially given the
telltale stuff
of what's happened. Yeah, they must be. I mean, if you think about them, they've got to be mad in terms of like production. But that's a very separate topic.
If you want to, you can sign up for beta testing if you want to get access early. If you go to the Halo Waypoint site, Microsoft has said that sign-ups are already through the roof, and they affirm that they won't be able to accommodate everyone. But if you want a chance to play, like the I think they call it like pre-flight testing.
Yeah, I got really annoyed by this because it's called.
Go on.
It's like, do you want to participate in flighting? I said no because I don't know what that is. Might as well want. I didn't know if Microsoft wanted to make me into a human centipede or something. So I just said no.
It does sound a bit like that, doesn't it?
So I just said no, and then it was like, yo, dude, have you signed up to the flighting? And they're like, I don't know what that is. Like, someone in a server was like, have you done this? We're like, I don't know what that is. They're like, it's flighting. Like, I've never heard that term in my life.
I think it's kind of like is it like a Halo lore term? I don't know.
I don't know. Like, is it like an American term? Is it like
maybe
like like when they test like a flying aircraft? Did they call it like a flighting phase or something? Like I don't know. But I didn't know it was a beta. I had no idea. Just call it the beta. Sign up for the beta.
Yeah. And call it what it is. If it's a beta, like if it's a test beta, call it a beta. If it's a demo, marketing demo, call it a demo. Yeah, that's my. I have strong feelings about demos and betas.
Props to DMC5 that said demo.
Yeah. There's very few games that do that now. I mean, yeah, just the thought of playing Halo on PC. I mean, we were all watching it. You weren't. You were napping, but we were in the Discord server watching it, and I was getting very excited. I mean, we are of a Halo generation. I mean, this is what we grew up on. I think we talked about this in the last podcast, but I don't think. Well, we probably would have been friends even if we didn't have Halo, but we certainly bonded a lot over Halo. I think our entire friendship group did.
And there were bonds made and broken.
Yeah, good point. I mean, Halo has been well sought after on PC for a long time. I mean, this Halo Online was not a mod. It was an official game. It was weird. It was only available in Russia, and it used like the Halo 3 engine.
Very strange, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it looked like Halo 5, but it was on the Halo 3 engine, and it was only available in Russia. Yeah, that was very strange. And then there was the El Dorito mod, which brought Halo 3 multiplayer and Forge to PC for a short time, but then that was shut down by 343.
Which, interestingly, at the time we're like, yo, fuck you, you're ruining everything. But this is why.
This is probably why. Yeah, exactly. We played that. Did you get involved in that?
Yeah, I got involved in that a little bit. It was fun, but like the PZ port was terrible. But it was a mod, so you know what I mean.
That's true. Oh Christ! Remember that server browser trying to get in?
Oh Christ! Yeah. Oh, I must have edited that out of my memory. That absolutely terrible. But
yeah, I mean,
go on.
Okay, I was gonna move on a little bit. Go on. You say what you want to say.
I think the spacing them out is actually a really good idea because
You're going to the same place that I was going to go.
oh, okay. Spacing them out is a good idea because, as huge as the player base is going to be when this game drops, that's people split across 6 games who are then split across 4 different modes who are then split across different playlists.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, unless they sort of group everyone into one thing, which is not going to happen because they're separate, this gives people time to focus on an individual game instead of just hot dropping, 6 full campaigns, firefights, multiplayer experiences like on people at once, like hundreds of maps, it should keep multiplayer lobbies alive for a good period, which is what we want.
I'm also
hopefully,
I'm very, very excited about the competitive implications that this might bring.
Yeah, I mean, Halo competitive scene is it's not been as prevalent, I don't think, since sort of Halo 4 and Halo 5, but so yeah, well, it's still pretty big, but certainly since the Halo 2 and Halo 3 days, it's
the Ninja days,
not been
the
as
OG.
Prevalent. Yeah, yeah. So it'd be interesting to see, and hopefully the PC release is free of all the technical issues that marred the Xbox users at launch. We'll see. Hopefully we'll get some more news at E3. All right. Let's talk about ALDI, UK supermarket.
No, that is a great title.
Let's talk about.
I
ALDI.
like Thanos. I like Thanos of gaming, but let's talk about ALDI with like a Photoshop edit of "Let's talk about Kevin" on it. That sounds excellent. That could be it.
That has to be up there as one of my best segues yet. I always struggle trying to segue into like news segments, but that has to be up there.
Yep.
Okay, so UK supermarket ALDI has simultaneously launched and cancelled a gaming campaign called Tea Time Takedown since we last recorded. So this is targeted towards families and getting children and young
parents.
adults. Okay, well, yeah, it's targeted at parents, and it's about getting children and young adults away from gaming for tea time. So they released this whole trailer thing, and it's like, kids playing games, mum's cooking dinner downstairs, it's on the table, and dinner's ready. The kids got to come downstairs, but they're in the middle of an Apex or a Fortnite match or whatever, and they can't come down. So the whole point of this campaign is parents sign up online and give their child's gamer tag. They submit it with a certain time, a tea time slot, and then Aldi's professional gamers will then join the children's enemy teams and attempt to finish their matches faster. They get them. They take them down, right? And then in this trailer, it shows like the kids some really cringy clips from like YouTube of like kids rage quitting, and then the kid comes down, and the mum does a sort of smirk at the camera because she's ruined her child's life, like gaming career or whatever. It's really weird. This sounds familiar because it harkened back to like last year's. Do you remember the Bully Hunter initiative?
And that's what this is all about.
What even was that Bully Hunter thing? It was about like Counter-Strike. It was about bullying.
It was
like,
about
online
people who were
cyberbullying.
toxic in Counter-Strike, and they were saying, well, you can ask for a bully hunter, and then they join the lobby and then kill the person who's being toxic to you. Except that literally doesn't work. No.
Yeah, like, that doesn't solve anything. Like,
but no, first off, it doesn't solve the problem from a moral or psychological level, and secondly, you can't join a CS:GO game mid progress, so you're ruined.
Exactly. Unless it's the DM, but I mean, whatever.
What I was really hoping for at the end of this advert was for the kid to like be standing like in the dark with a knife, and then it just cuts to black and it goes, excellent knife move, very difficult.
That'd have been fun.
That would have got me behind it. Can I also just say that this is one of the rare moments in life where you have to look at something about like 3 or 4 times and realize that you're actually reading it. Like parents,
it's very, very strange.
The whole article is like that, but there's one very specific thing I want to read out here, which you've already read.
Okay.
Parents sign up online and give their child's gamer tag and tea time slot. Then, quote, Aldi's professional gamers.
Professional gamers.
Professional gamers from Aldi.
I mean, if you don't know, if you live in the UK, you must know what Aldi is, but it's like a cheap supermarket. I mean, it's a bit of a Twitch, when Lidl's the Twitch meme, isn't it? You know, like scuffed. It's
Yeah.
like a crappy version of something like Aldi have, like, you know how like Tesco's and stuff sell like brands and like, you know, like Bird's Eye and whatever. Aldi sell the off-brand stuff. So you call it, like, if something's not that great, you call it like scuffed, or, you know, the Lidl version.
Like, instead of selling Maltesers, they sell like Maltesers or something.
Or Titan bars instead of Mars bars, that sort of thing. Yeah. So yeah, it's very, very strange for this to be coming from Aldi. There was a whole argument online about it demonizing gaming. I mean, Aldi have cancelled this now because it's been branded the worst gaming / esports marketing campaign of all time.
I definitely disagree with that. Bully Hunters was way worse.
Absolutely. But I mean, to me, I'm looking at this from a bit of a wider angle. It opens a much larger debate on the relationship between parents and kids when it comes to gaming. Because while I think that this advert and this whole campaign was particularly...
it was rough.
What's the word?
This was rough.
It was rough, yeah. But I mean, the roots of what they were trying to go for are a genuine issue. They just went about it the wrong way.
Even the bully hunters were like, right, what's our mandate? Toxicity. Good, right? Everything they did past that point was shit. But at least at least they figured that out.
They've clearly identified the issue that needs to be worked on. They just haven't gone about fixing it in the right way. So yeah, it's very questionable. But I mean, getting kids to respect dinner time schedules is a genuine struggle. I mean, I know that firsthand as someone, you know, who's like gone through that, and my brother, who's like a bit younger, not quite as young as this like target demographic, but even now, when we call him down for dinner, he's like, oh, I'm in the middle of a match of he'll kill me if I say Fortnite because he hates Fortnite. What does he play?
Mum, I'm in the middle of a game of Lawbreakers.
Said no one ever.
I'm letting the clock run down. It's got 20 minutes left.
Yeah, it's a genuine issue, and getting kids to respect that is properly difficult. It's good that Aldi were, you know, they accurately identified the issue, but they didn't go about it in the right way. Yeah, but I mean, this also brings up a different issue. I mean, Aldi doing this whole tea time takedown thing, it shifts the responsibility from parents. I mean, gaming is like any hobby or interest. Any good parent should have an active role in that interest and educate them about its rights and wrongs. And I know especially that can be difficult coming from a family where my parents weren't into games, and they certainly have a very limited understanding of how games work. I mean, I remember when I played Battlefield 3, the good old just pause it forehead.
Yeah, just pause it. Can't you just not?
What do you mean? Why don't you just pause it? I mean, can everyone else not just wait? Like, no, Mum, the other 63 people in this multiplayer
lads,
server.
can you just wait? I need to have my
Hang
tea.
on, me chicken nuggets and me waffles are ready downstairs. Give me a minute, lads.
I mean, even with Forge, I mean, at least with Forge, you could say, right, lads, I'm going for tea. I've locked myself in this 1x1x1 cube. Don't fuck with me. And then you'd come back and
someone found a kill ball and pushed it through.
Well, not that. Like, someone will have removed your privileges to go into the orb. You'll be in some sort of maze. Everyone is pointing at you with a rocket launcher, and as soon as you come back from being AFK, you're immediately killed. That's it. That's usually what happened.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, to say that it demonizes gaming is, I think, a bit of an unfair knee-jerk reaction, IMO, especially in games where any sort of whiff of criticism is responded to with wild counter-arguments. But it's important to properly assess the issues that games present, and respecting the role of games in family life is one that I think is certainly relevant. Aldi have just got the wrong end of the stick with it. I don't really know how you could go about... I mean, again, I've seen... Do you know what, actually? Just... The Guardian have started doing articles called Parents' Guides to X Video Game. They did one for Apex Legends the other week, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah,
I read through it, and I was like, this is fantastic. I'm going to send this to my granddad, because I was having a conversation with him about what Apex was the other day. And I think that's part of the problem, is just because a lot of parents don't they're not knowledgeable about how games work and the implicate the benefits and the pitfalls of them. So educating parents so that they can then have an active role in their children's hobbies is more important than forcing them to come down and have dinner when tea's ready. Have a schedule. Say, get used to sort of getting into the habit of saying, right, tea's going to be ready in 20 minutes. Don't start a new game before then. And if they do start a new game, then that's on them. Punish them or whatever. I'm not a parent, but this is very. I don't know. I'm really not the one to be giving parenting advice as a 19-year-old, but whatever. This is my sort of take on it. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I was sort of imagining myself. I think there's a really good YouTube channel that it kills me to forget the name of. But essentially, what he does is he takes television shows, usually anime, that's bad, like something like Sword Art Online, which is like terrible. And what he'll do is he'll kind of break it down and say, right, people don't like this, but here's the merit in it. Here's what's good, right? And here's what I would do to fix it. Obviously, it's really easy to fix something once it's already been released. Like making a product or making a something like The Apprentice, right? Like making a campaign from step one to release is way harder than looking at someone's project and going, I would have done that better, would have done that better, would have changed that, because hindsight is 20/20. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think when it comes down to this, I was just thinking about how could this have been better. I would have liked a campaign which was like a kid playing, like maybe like a kid playing CS:GO, and like someone, like the parent shouts like, "Tea's ready." He doesn't come down, and then the mum kind of peeks around the door, sees what he's doing. It's like an inferno or something, and he's like, and she's like, yeah, he spools, flash spools, and he's like, wait, what?
Yeah, that'd have been
The flash spools, and then he does it, and then he gets like the game-winning kill, and he's like, what the fuck? And then it just cuts him at the table, and they're like fist bump. That's how you do it.
Something like
that was my concept anyway, and I can't take credit for saying that, I would have done it better because I had the hindsight available, and I do feel sorry for ALDI because, or whatever marketing people did this, because they probably were of a certain
probably
demographic.
Had good intentions.
And of a certain demographic and understanding, and they wanted to do something. It didn't work. It's being memed, but I respect it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm of the same thing. Like, taking a wider perspective of it, it's like easy to see, criticize it. But they had the right idea.
They could have done an entire like marketing campaign with different games doing that. They could have done one for Fortnite, where like the dad, like a dad like comes in, and like just gives them like one tip or something. Just like leans around the door, or like just loads of stuff like that. Something that kind of puts them together. Something that kids are like. Something that makes the kids laugh, but also be like, know what, I need to get involved.
Something that also promotes, positive interaction between, because that just like completely eliminates like the interaction that you need between a parent and a child when you're like talking about video games or any hobby. Your mum and your dad are just putting your gamer tag in on a website and then letting someone else, try and get you downstairs. It's completely counterintuitive. But yeah, it's cancelled now, so whatever. That's dead and buried. Okay, right. Borderlands 3. You've done the notes for this, and you watched the press conference, so I'll let you take it away from this.
Excellent. So, in a sort of desert oasis mirage sort of way, Borderlands 3 was announced, and I couldn't really believe it was happening because I've wanted it to be announced for so long. Not just based on time, there's just been so many E3s and so many events that I'm like, this has to be it. This has to be the year. Like, they've got it ready. They've said for 3 years that, like, yeah, we're all working on that game that you think we're working on. And that was like 3 years ago. I'm like, are you serious?
It's been like an open secret for a long time. I
Yeah,
think.
it's like, we've known it was coming. They even came out and say, yeah, this is the tech demo we're using on the next Borderlands game. Literally not hiding it at all.
Yeah, that was GDC 2017. They had like a full Unreal Engine 4 tech demo, which was like with assets and everything.
Yeah. And the fact that it's here, I just want it now, and that's annoying. Like, basically, I'm a huge Borderlands fan, mainly, just because I love the art style, I love the gameplay a lot. This is the only looter shooter that does loot perfectly, I think. There's just so much of it. Everything is so clearly distinct. It's cool. It's not just, a beanie or some shoes, as the Division would have you believe. I also surprisingly got a lot into the lore as well, because as I thought it was just a sort of comedy Starship Troopers style game, the lore of Borderlands is actually really good. I've got some concerns about Borderlands 3, but I'll leave them to the end, and I'll kind of just briefly talk about what's going on. So, the trailer, it's not actually the first. They showed a teaser trailer called Mask of Mayhem.
That was banging. I loved that trailer.
Beautiful, that trailer.
It was, like, really stylistic, and showed off like all the characters and like all the like old and new.
Yeah,
and like a really
that trailer was also made using in-game assets, which is amazing to me. So that trailer was the teaser, and then we got the full trailer. So I expected this to be sort of a BioShock Infinite scenario, where it's Borderlands 3, but we're kind of going off planet. We might have some loose references to the characters before, but new Vault Hunters, new story, new everything. That isn't the case. It's like pretty much all the returning characters are back, the ones that are, still alive from Borderlands 1, 2, and even Tales from the Borderlands that I didn't even know was canon, but it is, which thank God, because that's probably Telltale's best game, I think.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So that is very interesting.
It's also set further on. Is like I think people have been saying like at least 10 years.
At least
it's got
10
like
years.
tiny...
I'd probably say more like 20, because you look at the Tina looks actually probably 10, because Tina's 13 in Borderlands 2, and in the trailer she looks like late 20s.
Looks like 20s.
Yeah.
Reese has got like a massive like handlebar mustache.
Oh, it's mustache heaven. Now
it's fantastic.
It's mustache heaven now. The previously in Borderlands, you've had, set corporations. So you've had Atlas in the first one, Hyperion in the second, and then these gun companies that are incredibly important to the lore are sort of just they're just the catalyst to have the different kinds of guns in the game. And I think it was back in like 2015 or something, whenever I knew Borderlands 3 would be coming out, I made the prediction that Borderlands 3 would be about the war of all the military factions coming together, because at the end of Borderlands 2, all of the vaults get like pinged on the map. Like everyone knows where they are. So all of the companies are like suddenly like, right, we've got to go. And that is actually what Borderlands 3 is going to be about. It's going to be these names that you've previously just seen on guns in the side of factories. Actually, like, that city in the Borderlands 3 trailer?
Yeah.
That's Maliwan City.
Oh, right, okay, so they actually become like empires and like...
Yeah, that, because it's a really interesting universe, because it's not like war, like there's a ton of franchises with stuff like Warhammer where war literally is the way of life, but Borderlands is like violence and chaos is...
It's like Mad Max, yeah.
Violence and chaos is how it is, and the guns that like the people who make the biggest sticks. It's kind of like that scene, in Episode 8 of Star Wars, where they're like, who makes the weapons for the Empire and the Rebellion?
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like that. So that's just going to be like so exciting to see how these like companies get like boiled down into their personalities. I'm really excited to see that. Aside from that, we've got the 4 new Vault Hunters. They've actually been named.
Yeah, there was a second trailer that they released a few days later, which was much better than the first. Because I don't know, Devil's Advocate. I didn't really like the first trailer. They released the first trailer, which was like a CG thing.
Yeah.
Then there was another one, like a launch trailer, which was like gameplay and stuff. I don't know. I just felt like it didn't have much focus.
I didn't like it either.
I mean, I think. Well, you said you liked it after when you first saw it. But I think that was just like the honeymoon
I liked
sort of
it
effect.
because it was Borderlands 3 being shown to me.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, as someone who's played Borderlands 2, loved it, played Borderlands the pre-sequel, didn't particularly enjoy it. So I enjoy Borderlands, but I'm not fanatic about it. And I watched that and I was like, this is like I don't know. I just felt like I could be watching Borderlands 2 and not known until Borderlands 3 came up at the end. I didn't see what was particularly new apart from the new characters.
Yeah. Well, that's something I'm gonna that is something I'm gonna bring up like when I get to the like end of my kind of rundown, because I think that trailer has some stuff in it that I'm a bit worried about, but also I've got evidence to suggest that it won't be a problem.
Okay.
So the new heroes are Amara, who is the token siren. Unlike the siren in Borderlands 1 being Lilith and Maya in Borderlands 2, this is a melee siren.
Okay.
Which is awesome.
Like, shift it off from Zero.
Kind of, but
From
it's more of
Borderlands
it, like, rather than, like, Zero's, like, blade and assassin style, she gets, like, these... you must have seen them in the trailer, like, these 6, like...
Yeah, the 6 arms.
Like, the 6 arms, and she can, like, sort of berserk with them and do all kinds of moves. There's Flak, which is, like, FL4K, who is a Beastmaster. I'm guessing, I haven't looked this up, but I'm guessing because his name is spelled FL4K that he's actually...
He sounds like a droid or something.
He'll probably be a similar make to the Claptrap units, because the Claptrap is spelled CL4P. He's a Beastmaster, so this is, I'm guessing, going to be the easiest class in the game, because that's what the Necromancer was in Borderlands 2. You sort of just summoned it and it did its own thing. I hope.
Same for pre-sequel, I think. Well, if you play as Claptrap, it was certainly easy mode.
Yeah. I'm hoping that the actual beast that you can summon, or maybe like a variety of beasts that you can summon, and you can actually do things with them, like tell them to attack specific targets or mark them or do stuff like that. I want a bit more interaction than just pressing my action skill and letting the beast do whatever it wants. Like I want more than that. Or maybe there's like different skill trees you can do. There's
probably.
I don't know how to pronounce this. Mose or is it Mose?
I don't know. I'm just gonna go with Mose, I think.
Yeah, I'll go with Mose. Mose is the commando. She looks. It's weird. Like early in the trailer, she looks like a sort of, like maybe like a cute button-nosed like 19, 20-year-old. But then she stood next to Maya, and she literally looks 12. She looks younger than Tina. So I have no idea how old Mose is.
Well, maybe there's a time jump in the story
that's also possible. Mose is the commando. Every Borderlands game has a commando. However, instead of the token turret, they were like, so Roland gets a turret in Borderlands 2, and Axton gets a turret in Borderlands 1. Axton gets a turret in Borderlands 2. They were like, should we do another turret? No, just give them a mech.
Why not?
Yeah, so Mose gets a mech, and the interesting thing about the mechs you can summon in is another player can actually get in the top gun.
Oh, right, cool.
So if we were co-op, I could use my action skill, and you could get in and like use the turret on it.
That's pretty cool. That sort of encourages co-op play more. So.
Yeah, and then finally, there's Zane, who for my notes I just put Mirage. Is what I put.
Oh, okay.
Essentially from Apex. He's got a lot of different kinds of gadgets, it seems. He's got like He's got cloaking. He's got holograms. I think he's got a lot of gadgets at his disposal, and that will change based on like what skill tree you go down in him. He seems like a very like a deceptive class. He will probably be a lot like Zero, where his single target damage is just insane. But other than that, he's not super useful. I really don't like playing Zero.
Yeah, I didn't like it either. I
picked
played
Zero.
I played the Siren.
In 2012, when I first bought Borderlands 2, I would have been 14. So I obviously picked Zero because he's the weeb cyborg ninja, and I hated it because he's just shit, especially in solo play. In solo, he's terrible.
I played Gunzerker and whoever the Siren was, Maya.
Maya's probably actually Gunzerker's probably the best for solo. But that's the 4 Vault Hunters. There was an interesting element in one of the trailers. I forget which one. Oh, it was the original trailer where it's what's she called? Amara. It's from the point of view of Amara. You can tell because of this the spell she is using and the tattoos on her arm. She's doing the sort of punching thing, but then she also sort of waves her hand, and Maya's ability where she picks someone up in an orb and traps them there happens. So I don't know if that was Maya being in the mission and she kind of just does that whenever she wants, or if you've got multiple abilities in this game. That is something I'm really wanting to see in this game. Thing. That is something I do genuinely want to see, because even Destiny has like multiple abilities, and I don't think it's a big step. Really cool. I don't think it's a big step.
I mean, it could also just be like another story element, because I think parts of the shots of that story of the trailer is you see Lilith, who was the Siren in the first game, and she obviously the Siren have tattoos. She looks to be like that bit where she's on the ground grabbing a vault key. All of her tattoos have been removed. So I don't know if there's something to do with like I don't know, siphoning Siren powers or something.
That's exactly what happens, because that is what I'm going to go on to next. The Calypso twins, as they've been named, the villains, do not start off as sirens. Well, the girl does, but the man doesn't, and I don't know their names yet. But Lilith doesn't have her tattoos. I'm guessing that scene is going to happen in the very intro of the game.
Yeah, I'd assume so.
Where kind of Lilith loses her powers. They kind of get transferred onto him and her, and they will be extremely powerful and will want to seek more power from the Vault. Because when Lilith, if you remember in Borderlands 2, even got a little bit in touch with the power of the Vault, she went quite mad.
Yeah, just a bit.
So they're the characters. It all looks great. The art style can never be trumped. It's like the first Borderlands.
It can never so it can never be trumped, but can it be evolved? Because
exactly
this is the one. I'm going to get onto my criticisms now, because obviously, like this has been going for a while. We've known about it, but in the time since we've had a new Borderlands game, trends have sort of moved on a bit. I mean, we've had plenty of new looter shooters, with primarily live service gamuts like Destiny, The Division. Borderlands doesn't look like it's learning much from those games, because obviously it's not going to be like live service online sort of thing. But at least from the trailers, how is this any different or improving upon Borderlands 2? And is that enough to sort of... I mean, it doesn't need to justify its existence, because it can just be, obviously a follow-up to Borderlands 3, but I feel like games have evolved a little bit since 2012, and I don't know. From the trailers, this doesn't seem to be bringing in much new to the table, especially obviously in its art design and maybe its gameplay. I don't know. We haven't seen any proper gameplay yet, so I could just be talking out my arse.
First, we need to see proper gameplay, because the thing that I'm very confident is going to be evolved in this game is the actual gunplay. The gunplay in Borderlands 2 is good, and it was very good at the time, and it's still okay, but in comparison to something like, I don't know, Apex or even The Division, it's like you can tell its age. So when it comes to the actual gameplay, if that is like ultimate watertight, then that is sort of enough for me to like it. or to be on board with the evolution. So the first thing that can evolve is the gameplay, and as with regards to like multiple action skills and things like that. So that can evolve there. The art style is difficult to make a graphical improvement on, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a little bit.
But you can't really improve the overall look of something to make it look more realistic, because that ruins the look of the game. But what you can do...
Yeah, it's certainly a stylistic approach.
Yeah, but what you can do is you can improve the lighting, you can improve the LOD. The LOD is the main thing that I'm going to be looking for. And I think the reason that first trailer was so underwhelming to many people is it was kind of set in the desert environments, and you look at it and it's like, this literally looks like Borderlands 2, and I agree with them. Like it did look very much like Borderlands 2. But someone did a frame-by-frame run-through of the trailer that I watched, and then in certain bits when it's just kind of panning and you look at it, you're like, wait, that does look like a modern game. But in other shots it doesn't.
Yeah, it's weird. Like
I'm
not sure.
actually kind of confident that they're going to polish it up, because if all of the trailer, if all of that trailer looked like Borderlands 2, I'd be like, right, this is probably what it's going to look like, and I'd resign myself to it. But if half the trailer looks like a modern 2019, like stylistic shooter, and the other half looks like Borderlands 2, then I don't know what to believe. Like, it's very it was an odd trailer.
It just didn't seem to have any focus. It felt like a smash cut of like something that you show to an investor or something like that, rather than having
it definitely
like a run, like a through thread that you can follow.
You could definitely tell. I've got a hunch that a trailer house did not make that first trailer.
I think I saw someone who made it on Twitter admit that like it was theirs. I can't remember who it was now.
I think someone at Gearbox made that trailer.
No, I think they got someone else to do it, but I don't think they had experience in. I can't. I'll try and find that. I saw a tweet the other day about someone who was like.
It also wasn't stylistically accurate. It didn't fit the style. Like the
Yeah, like Borderlands 2 had like the big wub wubs, and I think was it Borderlands 2 that had Doomsday by Nero?
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
But the actual song they use in it is great, because it's got that sort of plucking guitar, but then it's also got that techno sort of dubstep element, which is very Borderlands. That's what.
Yeah, it's like on brand.
Yeah. However, like the end, it's like this shot of the universe, and then this really weird like Borderlands 3 font that isn't in the font of the game, and it just looks like a promotion for like Digi.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's like I could sort of tell it was like. It said like from Gearbox Heart, and you're like, you know what? This probably wasn't the real trailer, and we're gonna get a proper trailer at some point. That 30-second trailer that showed the release date was infinitely better cut together.
Oh it was longer than I think 30 seconds is like the social media one, but there is one that's about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and that's a lot better.
Yeah, and the I think. The thing that I love the most about Borderlands 3 thus far so much is I love the cover art.
The cover art is the best thing about it.
It's
the Psycho with like the 3 fingers and the like holy hand grenade in the middle.
Yeah,
like Guns and Roses sort of thing.
I expected them to do a thing like in Borderlands 1. He's making a gun out of his fingers and shoots himself in the head. In the second one, he does it both, and I thought in the third one he was just going to have his foot like against his neck. But I'm pleased they didn't do that.
Yeah, no, this is incredible. So yeah, coming September 13th.
Yes.
And this leads into our next story, which is that The Outer Worlds and Borderlands 3 are Epic Games Store exclusive. So The Outer Worlds is coming to Steam 1 year after the launch on the Epic Store, very similar to Metro Exodus's exclusivity deal. And Borderlands 3 is exclusive. It's exclusive to the store for 6 months. They said it was coming to Steam like early 2020, I think, didn't they? So yeah, the exclusivity was initially leaked via a Twitter ad video along with the release date, and then that was officially confirmed on April 3rd. So yeah, this is like the whole Epic versus Steam debate continuing. You put here this down to Gearbox respective publisher, which I think is 2K, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait,
I mean,
2K. I get 2K and Take-Two confused, but I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah,
it's 2K.
what is the difference?
Take-Two
sure
is Rockstar.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, no, it is 2K. So yeah, this is like the whole Epic versus Steam debate continuing. As I mentioned earlier, I think, I mean I think the contentious part about people, I don't really want to say the word Twitter storm, because that is like the generic thing. If you go on Twitter and
it's not
read the replies,
as you said
to
many
these,
times. It's not news.
It's not news. It's not news. Just irrelevant. Irrelevant people just making their well, it's not irrelevant, but the negative opinion always tends to be the loudest on social media, and that just isn't news. So yeah, I mean, people are always going to be not nervous. What's the word I'm looking for? Apprehensive about moving to a different platform, especially because Steam's been the top dog for so long that when Epic comes along and says, right, you now have to play your games on here, also with the added stigma of Fortnite, and I think a lot of people think, I don't want to play my games on something that Fortnite's on, that sort of thing.
Which is the most mental thing ever, but there are people under 16 in this world.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, personally, I don't see it as much of an issue. I mean, at the end of the day, all you have to do is, you just have to click on another launcher. It's not that much. It's not impacting your life that drastically to be buying your games on a different platform. Epic, of course, gives developers a better percentage cut of the profits. They only take 88% instead of the 70% that Steam take. I mean, I've been saying this for the past. I think I've been thinking about this for the last few weeks. I think the best way to get around this is to, instead of have exclusivity deals, like put your game on both of the platforms and just adjust the price depending on how much each platform takes. So if Steam takes 70%, make that game more expensive on Steam, make it cheaper on Epic because they take less. I mean, that's like the sort of, it's a bit of a catch-22 method of approaching it, but
it would also be
that's like
that would also be a really good test to, because I would like, even though I don't personally understand it myself, I do believe that there are people who want to use Steam instead of Epic, and that the frustration of them not being able to use Steam is something that actually means a lot to them. I don't understand it myself, but fair enough.
I mean, it's the whole thing about, for like multiplayer games and stuff, I get that like having your friends on, like trying to move over your friends to another platform.
Yeah, but
There's
then
also,
you just
of course,
add them
Steam.
and it doesn't take very long. It doesn't.
Well, I get what you mean, but there's also like Steam has a lot more features. Like it's got the whole. Some people are well invested into the whole trading card thing. Epic Games doesn't actually have achievements or anything like that. Which, personally, thinking about it, I actually love achievements.
Same.
And so yeah, I mean, Epic Games does have a long way to go if they want to make their platform properly competitive in terms of its feature set. But also, I also think, as I was mentioning with Google and Microsoft and Apple for Stadia earlier, that we need another competitor. Because at the minute it's just Epic and Steam trying to one-up each other with exclusivity deals, and if we want each of these platforms to meaningfully evolve, I think we need a third competitor to make them think about their strategies a bit more intelligently.
It would be an interesting test. Like I haven't heard that concept that you've said there of releasing it on both and adjusting the price points based on the dev cut. It would actually be a really interesting test to, like, let's say, price a game at $40 on Epic and then price it at $60 on Steam, and then getting a sample size and saying how many of the people who, first off, make someone say, do you care about your platform? Like, do you care about using Steam over Epic, yes or no? And then saying, of those people, who would rather go for the lower price on Epic for the monetary value versus keeping it on their platform? That would be an interesting thing to see. Because would people put their money where their mouth is, or would they go, well, if it's cheaper here, and the dev's getting more money, then I accept it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, personally, I'd just go for Epic because I'm a student, I'm skint.
Exactly, yeah. But some people wouldn't. It was funny. I was listening to Off Topic. I was listening to Off Topic, and they were saying, like, Michael Jones when he was younger, and a lot of people when they were younger were like, how do I watch this thing that I want to watch for nothing?
Yeah.
What? Who can I lend it off? What website can I go on? What illegal shit can I do to make sure I can watch this thing or get this product for free? But now in his adult life, he's literally going around everywhere saying, how do I buy this? How do I own it? I just want to buy it and own it and have it. And I think people at a certain stage in their life, and I think I'm actually already there, where I'm like, I don't really care about the difference in price of two products. If I'm going to buy the product, I'm going to buy the more expensive one. Obviously, I'm not going to buy like these crazy collector's editions or the digital deluxe versions, But if it is the price that it is, I'm going to buy it. Like, I wasn't particularly interested in Smash Bros. I'd never played it before, but I dropped 50 quid on it. On launch day, because that's how much it was.
I see Smash as an investment for future memes.
Oh,
personally,
I'm getting too teased with Joker. When Joker,
didn't they say that was supposed to come out by the end of? It was the end of April.
It's coming soon. You know what? I will. I will
if it was the end of March.
I will
April.
talk about Persona a little bit later on, because there's stuff that I've missed out of here, and there's actually really important Persona news.
Okay, right. Okay. Well, I think we're at the end of our news segment, so you can just slip it in.
Well, I was talking about Persona now.
Okay, let's go.
So, Joker, firstly, I fucking love Joker as like a character concept, but I hate that they call him Joker, because people think you're talking about other Joker, right?
DC Batman.
Yeah,
Joker,
I think you're talking about DC Batman Joker. So you have to have that situation where where you're having a conversation about it, and 2 hours in they're like, "Oh, that's who you meant. I thought you were talking out your ass."
Yeah, exactly.
But with Smash Bros, every single character on that roster, it's a celebration of Nintendo, even though all the characters on the roster might not be Nintendo characters. They'll have been on a Nintendo console. So I'm sure there was Metal Gear games on the NES, like as early back as it goes, and even like Final Fantasy games and things like that. This is why the announcement of Joker being in Smash was weird, because Persona has never been on a Nintendo console. It's only started to be on a Nintendo console with the 3DS very recently. So people thought it was weird. But the fact that Joker was coming to Switch made people thought, is Persona 5 going to come to the Switch? And that has been 99% confirmed recently.
Right.
It is actually coming. There was a game that got revealed called P5R, Persona 5 The Royal, and they had to come out and say that it's the Royal, not the Royale. People were like, "Is this going to be Persona?"
It's actually a Persona 5 Battle Royale.
I don't even know how that would work.
September 2019.
I know. I don't even know how that would work. But people thought that P5R was going to be this like Switch version, or this like enhanced, like this definitive version, as it were. But they said P5R's coming out. Oh, but there's another game called P5S. Well, what's that?
This just starts to sound like a Nintendo console lineup.
It does, doesn't it? But there's P5S.
Or the new iPhone.
Oh, it's P5. It must be P5 Switch. That makes sense. Must be what that means. Like, it can't mean anything else. So I still have no idea what any of this shit means, because I mean, I absolutely fucking adore Persona, which is weird. Like I think the reason I love it so much is because when this I had no knowledge of this franchise before, like, I'd even heard of Persona 5. In fact, the only thing I'd seen from Persona is the Persona that looks like a dick. That was it.
Okay. Of course.
And I'd seen nothing from it, and there was so much hype around Persona 5. I think they actually showed it during one of the E3s at Sony. They showed it on screen, and I was like, what is this weeb bollocks? Get it off my screen. And this is the time when this is the time when I was watching anime. So go on, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, I think I have Persona 5 and it's on my backlog, and I'm going to get to it eventually. And I think the way that I've heard it described a lot is that it's the weeb RPG for people who hate weebs.
100%, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like I watched it, and this even when I was like watching a little bit of anime, I watched it and said, this is high school meaningless garbage, and I hate that people are excited for this. Why is Twitch chat filled with weebs? Why are these people who I even like on the internet being like, oh, this looks so cool? I'm like, fuck it. Then I, for a meme, watched the first couple of hours of someone playing through it and was like, whoa, this is like legit. And then I played it myself and I was like, okay. And now, having beat Persona 5, it's my favourite RPG of all time.
Quite the turnaround.
A huge turnaround. I think that's why I love it so much. I had zero expectations from the first time I saw it.
If this thing that coming to Switch is true, I'm gonna be rather annoyed because I would love to have it on Switch.
That is unfortunate.
I bought it on
because Persona 5
on PS4.
Persona 5 is an amazing transport game as well.
Yeah, that's annoying. I think I bought it. It was on sale. It was when I first got my PS4 last September, and there was like a big sale on. Yeah, and I was like, right, and because you said you recommended it, and it was like, oh well, it's like game of the. I don't think it's game of the year, but like all the.
It was game of the year in a lot of places. Not the official
edition that I bought. Yeah. I can't remember which, but it was on sale for like a lot, and I was like, right, fuck it, I'll get it. And then it's just been in my backlog for ages. So, but yeah, coming to Switch, there's no release. We say, are you sure it's confirmed, or is it just rumors?
It's 99% confirmed. I mean, it's called P5S, and Joker's coming out. It's called P5S, and Joker's coming to Smash Bros. There's nothing else it can be.
Okay, yeah, that does make a lot. There's a lot of correlation there. All right, cool. That's the end of our news segment then. Let's go on to download discourse. What we've been playing this week. We've got some stuff that's kind of like similar stuff that we've both been playing. So do you want to start with Sekiro or The Division 2? Which one do you want to talk about the least first?
The Division.
The Division, that's the one I was going to... Yeah, okay. So when did this release? This was start of March?
March 13th?
Something like that. Anyway, yeah, we've both... Well, I've leveled up to level 30, which is max... I think it's max rank.
It is. It is, but yeah. It's the looter shooter meme where your level doesn't even matter. It's all item level.
Yeah, so I've got to the end game. I haven't played any of the end game, but I've reached the end game because I'm waiting for you to get to
level 29.
30. Yeah, so you're pretty much there now. I mean, I was really, really enjoying The Division right up to about level 24. And then after that, that's when you start to sort of get over to the western area of the map, where I feel like that like, I don't know if it was just the way it was designed differently, or whether they got to like the end of it and were just like, right, fuck it, we need to ship this thing. Because the mission structure takes a massive dive, or like the world structure, I should say. Because whereas I don't even know if that's right, because it could just be obviously like the way, like the different way that it's designed, like being more dense, dense urban structures that just force the mission structure to be a bit more. Because the way I was coming across a lot of issues where I'd start a mission in like that western area of the map, and I'd end up aggroing or accidentally aggroing all the enemies from like different missions because they were so close together, and then I'd get completely cornered like 360 degrees, and I'd like, well, I can't do anything now. I have to run for another 5 minutes from base camp back to where I am.
It's the number one problem with any co-op game like that, is that it's essentially impossible to balance solo, because it doesn't matter how much you change the numbers. It's a bunch of enemies focusing one person rather than two. It's the biggest difference in the world.
Yeah, I mean, up to that point, I was enjoying it. I mean, the mission structure is exactly the same as it was since the Division 1. It's go to this place, run through a building, shoot some men's, maybe activate a terminal, or search something, or talk to a human, then run back out the way you came
some
and
sort
shoot
of
some
generator
men's.
or satellite.
Generator, defend the generator for a period of time.
But
then,
it'll turn off.
Oh yeah, and then you got to go activate it again, and then if you're lucky, if you want some actual excitement, you'll go on a roof at some point and fight a big bad man.
Or you go into a garage.
Yeah, or a garage or an underground, parking lot, something like that. It's very samey. But I mean, the whole sort of like mechanic of the looter shooter meme. It doesn't. I didn't really find that bit got old. I mean, getting new loot was always still exciting for me.
And the loot's genuinely interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Even The Division is such a strange game because it's one of the only games I can think of it's a victim of its own design. Like, it's an open world game set in Washington DC that once that restricts your level design enormously already if you're going to pursue that. I mean,
the world is fantastic. Actually, I think I watched a thing that it's practically a one-to-one recreation of Washington DC. I think I saw a post the other day that said you should be able to find your apartment if you live in this area of Washington DC. It's that accurate.
Well, that's what Ubisoft has always been incredible at and always will be incredible at. Their environment I swear that they've got their environment artists kicking back as 16 naked eunuchs feed them grapes, and then the actual and then the actual game designers are in a Blade Runner slum or something like that. But it's a beautiful world, but as you say, the game design is restricted by the world, where it's go in building. How can we create a side mission out of this building? Oh, well, we just ascend multiple floors. We have a sort of central atrium area, and then when we need a sort of climax to get out of here, we just go to the roof. And then when we're done on the roof, we just activate one of those things and go back down again. And then you repeat that. So it's you can't really create interesting level design based on what you've got. And then you can't create interesting looking loot or feeling loot because you're barred by realism and real guns. So it's weird for a game to... I'm really surprised that they made The Division 2, that they really... It must be this director's vision, and I'm fine that he's got that vision. It's just weird to me that if you're going to make this game... If you did he want to make a Tom Clancy game set in a city first, like Ghost Recon, and then it turned into a looter shooter? Or did he want to make a looter shooter first, and for some reason it became a Tom Clancy game? I don't know. But I think that's going to be a problem with The Division until... the day the franchise dies, is it just doesn't fit. It's good. It's fun.
It doesn't matter. It is good fun, but it
doesn't fully. It just does not fully come together. There's something wrong about it, which is it's weird to say because I do genuinely really like the game, but.
The other thing that's wrong with it, and again, that's part down to the context that it's set in and sort of the genre.
Oh yeah, we have to talk about this.
That it is. The whole political scandal of Ubisoft have been trying to say ever for the past couple of years now that their games don't have any, they don't comment on politics in any sort of way, which I get from a PR standpoint. You don't want to upset the left or the right.
I've got full respect for. I obviously I'll always have more respect for someone who has the balls to say something, but if you want to say, look. We just want to release our game. We don't care, right? I'm okay with that.
I mean, you can say that, but I mean, when you set your game in the political capital of the country that it's set in, and the whole premise of the game is that a virus spread across the world because it was stuck on dollar bill notes
because of rampant capitalism.
Rampant is the whole reason for this situation is just capitalism. I mean, when you say that it's you can't comment on, and also there's the whole thing about every single issue in this game, the story is boring as anything.
Oh,
and
it's absolute.
It's so
shite.
drab.
Oh,
But like
I rarely
every
say,
single
yeah, like I rarely say a story is like shite. Like it's a story is at worst
it's usually got
forgettable.
redeeming features.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like this, like I don't know, the story of Call of Juarez Gunslinger. Like it's nothing amazing, but I'm like, you know what? It did its thing. The story in Division 2 is shite, and it's shite because it's bland.
It's shite because it hasn't got the confidence to comment on anything politically. There's such potential for a politically. It doesn't have to be like comment on, be like pandering to comment on like the current political landscape. But you have such like a potential for doing a deep political story here, and it's just that it feels like they're too scared to go like down any sort of alleyway with that. The other thing that annoyed me.
Sorry, it's not even restricted by political. It's not even restricted by political bounds either. Because you and me were talking the other night about how there's so much interesting things they could have done with the story that they didn't, that aren't even related to politics. Like how the agent, like the agency, the division, would be so much more interesting if it wasn't a government organization.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. See, this is what I mean. Like, you can't say that this isn't a political thing, because I felt very, very strange finishing this game. I got the final cutscene, and it's you go in this room with the president of the United States giving like this speech to all these division agents, saying, "We did it. We finally re-established the network, and we've taken over." And it's like, imagine that. Imagine if that was a real thing. If the government, if there was like a whole breakout of a virus in the US, and everyone was just fighting for food, there was different factions, and the government was one of them, and the government just went out and their solution to everything was shoot everyone else, and then they said, "Finally, right, we've done it, we've conquered it." Imagine if that was a real thing. It would be mental. And I don't know, like there was a part of me that finishing the campaign of the Division 2 was like, am I the bad guys here? Because I feel like I'm the bad guys. I don't feel like I've done anything good.
That would be such an interesting twist, though.
Yeah, exactly. Like if it was an actual like thing like that, like you play as a rogue, unit that had like maybe branched out from the government, that would be interesting. But because you're just playing as the government, it's like, oh my god,
they could do
so much.
They could do so
lost
many
potential
They
there.
could do so many meta things, and that's what gaming is great for, is pulling like really sucker punch meta moments. Like, imagine if you've been playing this game simply to be grinding item levels, like, and just like wanting to do the raids, like talking to these NPCs all the time, and then what if this raid drops, or this first like DLC drops, and there's an entire story section about how you've been deceived the entire time. The government actually has a mandate, or maybe the government is the one that started the virus, and now the division has defected from the government to stop the government. That would be sick.
Yeah, it'd be incredible. Like, there's so much lost potential for this game, and it annoys me because I've genuinely really enjoyed it up to sort of like the last few hours. I haven't touched any of the. I don't think you've touched the Dark Zone or like the multiplayer stuff yet. We might talk about that in a future podcast if we ever get round to it. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it for the most part. There's a lot of lost potential, but I mean, I don't think story is what we're there for really with the Division. It's just sort of the gameplay loop of the looter shooter, which is.
It's not what we're there for, but at the same time, it should be there.
Would have been nice. Yeah, it should be. I mean, yeah, Ubisoft are known for they're known for their world design. It would be fantastic if we could remember them for their stories once again, like we could with Assassin's Creed of old and Splinter Cells.
Yeah, like
and all
people
that.
aren't playing
Good stuff.
People aren't playing World of Warcraft for the story, but the story is there, and when you read into it, it's good. But it doesn't even need to take center stage. It just has to be there. It just needs to be better.
Would be appreciated.
Yes.
Speaking of games that have got decent stories, we've been playing Sekiro this week as well. Well, you finished it in the space of like a week or something.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, and
I'm still
2 weeks, and that's with bashing as well.
I'm still mashing my head against the wall with Lady Butterfly. So,
do her later.
No, I want to finish her because I know I do the first phase, and I'm like, right, I know I can get her, and then she brings up all of her ads, and I'm like, well, I'm getting fucked here now.
You just ignore them all and run around until they disappear.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'll keep going with it, but yeah, I mean, this is a game that I think is up there for Game of the Year.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, how did you find your experience going forward? Because you were a big fan of the Souls games.
Huge fan of the Souls games, but a bigger fan of Bloodborne. And this game is a lot more like Bloodborne than it is like a Souls game. Bloodborne! It's a lot more like Bloodborne than it is like a Souls game, and that's excellent because there is no leveling, there is no gear. Bloodborne has gear and leveling, but it's nowhere near as in-depth as Dark Souls is. It's all about pure skill and gameplay, and reward for exploration as well. So it has these two happy mediums where it's like, yes, you need skill to beat this boss, but you're also highly rewarded. You basically have to explore as well. Like you can be as good as you want, but if you're not fighting the mini bosses, you're not going to survive.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the difference between your health bar at the start of the game and then getting your like 9th prayer bead necklace at the end. It's like it's almost half the screen long.
Yeah, that was the thing that was annoying me in the early game, is that enemies do so much damage. If you get hit by that, if you've lost even a slight amount of health and you get pinned down by the chained ogre, it's just an instant kill. It's ridiculous. And I think that you were saying that like one of the criticisms of this game is that the early game is too difficult.
I don't think it's too I don't think it's as it is. It's too difficult. I think it's the combination of it being a challenging game and also introducing new mechanics at the same time that makes it difficult. I think that's what makes it challenging.
I mean, certainly I've had moments where I'm like this. Like when I first picked it up, I was like, yeah, this game's hard. And don't get me wrong, it's difficult. The way that I've been best describing it, I think, is that like we always used to describe Dark Souls as hard but fair, and I think that that statement is even more true for Sekiro. I wouldn't even say Dark Souls is that fair, because there's some bosses you can just literally cheese through if you want to. If you want to,
there's a select few Bloodborne bosses where there's been Reddit posts, like Salt Reddit posts, that are genuinely like allowed. Like you know when Salt goes beyond Salt, and you're like, I actually feel bad for this person.
Yeah.
there's like I forgot the name of the boss, but there's a boss in Bloodborne that's well known for having the shittest like stomp hitbox in the history. You could be on the other side of the universe and the shit hits you. But all the souls sweats are like, but it's fair, lol, just get a better, lol. It's like, no.
Yeah.
These games are famously obtuse, filled with problems, have both incredible game design and some of the shittest game design I've ever seen at the same time.
You know how we say a game is scuffed? I think we should, any sort of platformer that's scuffed, we should just describe it as the Dark Souls of platformers.
Well, yeah,
because Dark Souls platforming is some of the worst out there.
Will they put jump on the same button as dash, as they up until 2015? How?
Exactly.
They even did it in Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
Like, it's. I think that's the thing that blows me most away about Dark Souls, to be honest, is it's like, if it was just shit, it's shit, right? That's fine. Like, if it was filled with these problems like, oh lol, jumps on dash and the humanity system doesn't make any sense, we're like, oh, this is a really unfinished game. The other problem is that the lore, level design, world building, storytelling, and gameplay is fucking amazing. So what happened here?
It's like a double-sided coin, isn't it?
Yeah. But Sekiro is very much not a double-sided coin. However, but first off, I fucking love Sekiro. I don't want to spoil like any parts of it. I'd probably give it a. If I was going to give, I don't really believe in arbitrary ratings, but if I were to give it one, I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10. Which is sort of upsetting for me, because I thought this game was going to be a 10 out of 10. There are two glaring problems with Sekiro.
Mm-hmm.
First is, I think that the difficulty. I mean, I don't want to call myself a good. I think I'm good at games. I don't think I'm amazing at them. I think I'm good at them. I think I'm above average, right? I believe that, and I've thought about it hard. The opening hours of Sekiro and the opening game design sections of Sekiro suck. They're not good. They're very poor, especially in comparison to the Souls game prior. You get stuck in... You've got multiple ways to go, all of which are very short. I found myself having 3 different ways I could go, all of which ended in a mini-boss. That if I was playing any other Souls game or any other game period, I would go, I'm not meant to fight this yet, let's go somewhere else. And then I just kind of did that cycle for a few hours, and I was like, well, what the fuck's going on? Like this isn't right. And then the mechanics were hard to get used to, because as Vati Vidya said in his YouTube channel, he said, you might, Dark Souls, like, you're going to find this hard if you haven't played a Souls game, but you're going to find it harder if you have. Because there's so many elements.
You have to forget like all of the muscle memory that you remember from Dark Souls. Like you have to, because in Dark Souls it was literally just dodge to avoid most attacks. Now you have to think about: are you going to roll out of the way? Are you going to jump out of the way? Are you going to parry this? Are you going to run away? Whatever. Yeah, there's a lot more to think about.
Also, a lot of the early enemies, and this changes as the game goes on. The early enemies' sweep and thrust attacks are way harder to gauge than the later ones. The later ones, you're like, okay, this is a sweep, that's a thrust. I can tell the difference. Whereas in the early game, they sort of just hold their sword behind them, and then the Jeopardy theme plays, and you sort of just have to guess. That's a good meme. There should be a meme which is like, and now we play. Is it a sweep or is it a thrust?
Is it a sweep or is it a thrust?
Is it a sweep or is it a thrust? That's a good title as well. That's a really good title, to be honest.
For 3 titles.
3 titles.
Jesus. That's incredible.
So I do think that the game at a certain point, specifically the early game, has some shit. It also has 2 bad bosses. I call them bad bosses because the game stops being samurai, sword-on-sword clashing simulator, and it just decides it wants to be Bloodborne again. Right. And it just fucks with the gameplay. I'm not going to spoil it, but it just fucks with the gameplay. It removes this whole parrying element and getting in your enemy's face, and it becomes dashing around an arena, trying to find the spots where you can just get a free hit and then spending 20 minutes fighting the thing. Like it becomes that, and that shouldn't. I don't think that should have happened.
Okay.
But I think the most glaring problem with the game is the problem that I've had most recently when I've been trying to get all the achievements, and there are 4 endings to the game. And if you've ever played a Dark Souls game and you've ever attempted to do any of the quest lines, you'd know that the most obtuse, just bollocks. Like,
yeah, well, there's no like sort of way of tracking quests or anything, and there's no like 3D markers to
which is fine.
Literally just,
which is fine.
Yeah.
If that's what they want to do, that's fine. But if you're gonna do that, you need stuff in place. You can't just let the player play the game, and then if they don't talk to someone in a certain place, or if they do something out of order, like fuck them. You can't do that. Like, you're not respecting my time if you want me to just, oh, you fucked this playthrough, better do another one. Like, that's another 10 hours.
Yeah, well, there's no save points or anything like that, is there either? It's like a constant world state.
Yeah, there's nothing like that. So I was trying to get an ending called the Purification ending, which involved doing this quest line of an NPC, and you've never seen worse gameplay than what I did last night. I was just trying... I was on wikis, I was on YouTube videos, I was like, what the hell is wrong? I made a Reddit post about it, I said, why isn't this quest line advancing? There was like 20 people who responded saying different things. And then eventually one guy comments and said, you might want to get this item first, or maybe try beating a boss, 'cause sometimes that progresses the quest line, no one really knows why. And I did those 2 things and it worked.
Oh, okay.
It's just like, it's just, but
but
It's just like trial and error.
but
though.
not
Like,
fair
that's
enough.
not.
Because the I could have got this ending. I could have gone on this like goose chase that could have, and it makes you fight like a much harder secret boss. Like that's cool. Like that keeps me in the immersion. But if I'm wanting to get the best ending to the game, and instead of just playing the game, I have to be trolling through wikis and making Reddit posts, I am sucked out of the experience instantly. And I think that was your experience as well when you were playing like Dark Souls 3 for the first time. It was just,
Dark Souls 3 was my first Dark Souls, and it was literally just wiki.
Yeah, you just had a wiki open.
Wiki Lokigami.
Because Dark Souls was the series, and it still scares me that you can pick up an item and think, oh, what does this do? And you could use it, and then the game would be like, 2 times harder now, lol, suck shit, suck your shit.
I mean, that's sort of the thing with the snap seeds, because I got a snap seed. You get a snap seed but this is like really early game, so it's not too much of a spoiler, but you get a snap seed just before you go to the Lady Butterfly fight. And I turned out I'd gone the wrong way. There's 2 separate paths you can go in this area leading up to the Lady, but you have to go get a key from someone else before you can get to this thing. So I thought that it says in the item description that it gets rid of illusions. What it actually does is if you use it at the right time, it gets rid of the ads that Lady Butterfly brings up in her second fight. I thought it might be like Dark Souls, where you got the illusionary walls.
Yeah.
I thought if I used it, it might get rid of it, and I thought there was an illusionary wall somewhere in this that I was missing because this door was locked and I couldn't get past. So I used it, and I was like, oh, it turns out these are a ridiculously rare item, and I've just made this fight a lot harder than it needs to be.
Well, but you could fight Lady Butterfly, get to her second phase, use the snap seed, lose as you're supposed to, and then you don't have one again.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're like, well, what's happened there? It's like I made a point to go through the game, like I never used any of the sugars on the bosses. I didn't use any consumables on any of the bosses because like this is a crutch, and if firstly it's a crutch and I want to beat it legit, and secondly if I was to use one and I die, it's pointless.
Yeah, exactly.
I've just wasted an item. Like there's no justification for what I've just done. I've just wasted an item.
I mean, yeah. So going back to your point about like the early game being like the weakest part, I mean, I'm still in the early game, and I mean, I kind of want to disagree with you. I mean, I haven't got to the end game, so I don't have as much perspective as you, but I kind of not enjoy, but I kind of appreciate the fact that it's throwing this shit at me right in the early game, because when I beat a boss, I genuinely feel like I've learned something. Like, as I was saying to you, when I was trying to beat the bosses, every time I died, I was getting to obviously the end of my tether. Like, I was having to resurrect, and I was having to use all my healing gourds, and it still ended up dying. When I think I've beat like 5 or 6 mini bosses now. I think 4 out of those 6 mini bosses, when I've beaten the boss, I've beaten it without resurrecting and without finishing out any of my healing gourds, because once you get it, you get it. Like, once you've got that timing down for the parrying and for the dodging, you get it, and you genuinely feel like you've learned something, and you can push forward and use that later on. So while it is a bit of a pain to sort of bash your head against the wall for a bit, I feel like that difficulty curve is all right for teaching you like how to play the game properly. Which, I mean, I haven't got to the later game, so I don't know how that'll figure out, but I also think that like maybe it depends on the mindset. I mean, I'm going into this with a mindset of that this is difficult and I'm going to struggle with it. If you're coming at it from like, well, I've played the Dark Souls games, so this shouldn't be as difficult as I think it will be, it might taint how you think about it a little bit. But that's just me.
I did expect it to be challenging. I don't think it was the challenge. It was more the fact that something felt wrong. It didn't feel like the challenge I was expecting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
different type of challenge, yeah.
Or maybe, I don't know what it was. It was like...
I've seen a lot of reports of like people going back and playing Bloodborne now and saying like, I used to find Father Gascoigne ridiculously difficult, and now he's piss easy because I can parry everything.
Yeah, if I went back and played Bloodborne, I could probably fuck the final DLC boss now. Is that the hardest one? I could do it. Just based on what Sekiro has taught me.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing more of it. Well, I think I'll get onto it a little bit later because I'm doing more sort of streaming and content stuff, so I might be streaming Sekiro in a lot more. So I'll see how I get on with that. If you want to follow that, I'm at youtube.com/Josh Boyles. You'll find me on there. That's all I've been playing. Have you been playing anything else, or is that what we done for that segment?
Aside from the odd 3 a.m. throwaway shit of Tetris 99, no. And I don't want to talk about it.
All right, I do. I want to talk
I don't
about it
want to
very
talk about
briefly
it because you got your win.
I got a win, and your heart rate should not be that high while you're on the shitter. It's genuinely dangerous. It's, oh my god, I had to, like, I would have said that I had to sit down, but I was already sitting down. I like, it was ridiculous. Yeah, I got my win. I've not uninstalled it, but I haven't played it since. So
I'm gonna get that win and never play it again. It's all I want. It's all I want.
Yeah, that's Tetris 99 it's the perfect shitter game, but I've since I got that win, I've not touched it. So that's all I wanted.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I've played. All right, very quickly, I want to go back to the news because I just realised that I accidentally cut-pasted instead of copy-pasted something to a different document. Okay, Bioware have responded to a Kotaku expose article, and I'm mad about it. And I want to talk about it.
I'm also extremely mad about this. It's going to be difficult to talk about this, like I mean, we don't talk professionally on this show, but I don't want to talk
That's the thing,
semi-professionally about this because this is like, ugh.
Yeah, right. Okay, so Jason Schreier, who you should know, is like the games industry.
He's basically the games industry's Julian Assange at this point, isn't he?
He is. He's ridiculous. Like, it honestly, genuinely astonishes me how much access he has to the games industry at this point. He just like seems to have a contact everywhere. You see, he published another one of his expose articles to Kotaku the other day, this time exploring the troubled development of Anthem, the EA game that released in February. So he spoke to over 19 employees who either worked on or close to Anthem, and spoke about the intense working conditions that drove many to take extensive career breaks due to mental health, to a distinct lack of mismanagement, and with senior staff coming and going, working across 3 studios across the US, which resented each other, and the difficulty.
God.
And the difficulty of being forced to work with the Frostbite engine, which was developed by DICE for the Battlefield games, first-person shooter games, and EA sort of decided that everything had to be in Frostbite now, but didn't
Frostbite, but it's a
Frostbite,
but it's a first-person shooter thing, sir. Yeah, well, you can draft the tanks in Battlefield. You make it work.
Yeah, I mean, I've read Jason Schreier's book, Blood, Sweat and Pixels. I've talked about that quite a lot, but there's a chapter on Dragon Age Inquisition, and they talk again about like the difficulties of working with Frostbite because it didn't have things like you take for granted, like a third-person camera. Like Dragon Age Inquisition wasn't playable until like the last 6 months of development.
Fuck me.
Because
I didn't
because
know
it just
that.
didn't have because it just didn't have a camera.
6 months.
It's ridiculous. And they had like the similar thing. They talked a lot about the Bioware magic. That Bioware are, like, they have this prestigious development team that can turn around the development of a game within 12 months, and that's just not a thing. And it's like intense crunch culture and all that sort of thing. If you get the chance to read the article, read it. It's a long ass one. It took me about an hour and a bit on the train the other day, but it's genuinely astonishing, this article. So Kotaku reached out to BioWare and EA for a comment on the article before publishing, as is good journalistic practice, but they declined to comment. However, BioWare then issued a press statement a mere 15 minutes after the post went live, so they obviously didn't read it, to address the investigation. The blog post praised the hard work of the developers for the hard work on their games, but there was a really troubling quote from it, which is, "We don't see the value in tearing down one another or one another's work. We don't believe articles that do are making our industry and craft better." This really, really annoyed me, right? Because it completely misses the point of the article. This article isn't tearing down the work of any one person or any even a group of people. It's just it's journalism. This is reporting the facts about what's happening and the implications of that, and it's critically analyzing it. And if you fail to understand that critically analyzing your work is important, then it's just blatant ignorance, especially when you think about the real world implications of this. Imagine if you are an employee at BioWare, and there was a really striking part of this article that I think I posted it in Discord, and it talking about a developer who had literally, here it is. Perhaps most alarming, it's a story about a studio in crisis. Dozens of developers, many of them decade-long veterans, have left BioWare over the past 2 years. Some who have worked at BioWare's longest-running office in Edmonton talk about depression and anxiety. Many say they or their co-workers had to take stress leave, a doctor-mandated period of weeks or even months' work of vacation for their mental health. One former BioWare developer told me that they would frequently find a private room in the office, shut the door, and just cry. People were so angry and sad all the time, they said another, depression and anxiety are an epidemic within BioWare. Okay, imagine that, right? And then imagine, so you're an employee at BioWare that literally finds...
Let's build that up a bit more, right? I think this has to be like... It's hard to relate to working in a video game studio, right? So... Let's say, for example, you're working in like a clothing shop, right? And you're so busy, and you're so stressed, and you're just worked off your feet. You are getting absolutely fucked by your manager. There's nothing you can do. Your colleagues don't like you. Your customers are assholes. Like it's just a bad time, and everyone's had maybe not their entire job has been like that, but they've had days like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that feeling as we go on, because I think it's important. Because
imagine that the work is horrendous, and that whole thing, and then imagine that your manager comes out and says the struggles and challenge. No, hang on, sorry. The post also said the struggles and challenges of making video games are very real, but the reward of putting something we created into the hands of our players is amazing. People in this industry put so much passion and energy into making something fun, we don't see the value in tearing down one another or one another's work. We don't believe articles that do that are making our industry and craft better. Imagine your manager coming out and saying, actually, we really value the hard work that people are putting in, and the stress that they have to go to is like, that's not an issue. That's not an issue.
Or like,
but we appreciate the work.
Well, even like, I feel like it's almost even worse to say, yep, it's tough. Like, that's literally what they just said.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's tough, but, it's fine. Like, it's not a problem. Imagine that. It's actually, it really infuriates me. Like, just thinking about
both
the
of
real
us,
world implications of
both
that.
of us, you more than me, have experienced shit management. Like, we've experienced we've experienced the very seething core of middle-aged management. And it's Orwellian. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it's like North Korea. It's like saying, "Are you enjoying yourself?" Say yes.
Yeah, exactly. It feels very much like that. But I mean, this is it's also the fact that they just dismiss the importance of journalism. The importance of journalism is about finding out the facts, reporting the facts, and holding power to account. And they're saying that we don't believe articles that do their job are making our industry and craft better. If you don't acknowledge the problem, then it's just ignorance. And
so what they've actually said there is any article that attempts to expose problems within the gaming industry isn't making the gaming industry better.
I mean, to a point, well, articles what do they do? Like they don't solve the issue, but at least they inform people of that the issue exists, and that's a step in the right direction to then fixing it.
Well, social media, thank God, as much as of a demon as it can be, has actually been. I mean, this is very much a two-sided thing, and it's not a great thing in every circumstance. But sometimes outcry, with the rise of social media, outcry directly hurts brands, and you can see it in the stocks. I mean, we saw it with Diablo Immortal.
Blizzard.
Yeah, just things like that. Like, if people aren't happy, the stocks go just fuck. Like, they just go fuck. Like,
as opposed to like, I don't know, like a car company or I don't know, like a company that's a bit just more standard. Like if you make fucking toasters, you're gonna have a bit more of a like a normal up and down. But if you're in the gaming industry or the movie industry, it's just either bam or down. Like you're fucked.
Yeah.
It's just.
I think that what was apparent to me reading this article is that I when I was reading it, I felt like it was something really important because not enough people, including myself, know about how video games are made. And I think it's vitally important that people are educated on the fact that it's not just the click of a button. It is genuine hard work and sweat and tears that go into creating games. And the crunch culture is prevalent. And I think what was most worrying about this story was that a few days later, Jason Schreier tweeted out saying that he'd received reports from developers at other studios saying that if you replace BioWare with My Studio, it's the same story. Excuse me. So that's really worrying, especially since, you know, the whole Red Dead Redemption 2 stuff from last year with the intense crunch culture. This is not how games should be made. Speaking of someone who, you know, doesn't make games, but from an outside perspective, something needs to change because it's immoral.
I don't think it's even about outside perspective. This is not how games should be made. I don't care. I mean, this is like it's like
sweatshops.
It's the Quentin Tarantino and like Martin Scorsese approach to film directing within gaming. It's like all that. I'll tell you what it is. It's like, have you seen that? Right, odd tangent. Have you ever seen that Mitchell and Webb sketch, which is where instead of having predictive text on his phone turned on, he's got subtext turned on.
No, but I can imagine where this is going.
But it basically is like, whatever someone types, it tells you what they actually mean.
Yeah.
And like, if a manager who works in a shop, or the manager of a studio such as BioWare, says, "Yeah, I've got kind of a tough work ethic, and I'm very I'm results focused." What results focused means is, I don't give a shit about my staff and will do anything in my legal limit to get things sorted. And then when it gets sorted and it actually comes out all right, I don't really care about the position my staff are in. I fulfilled my part of the job. I did management, and my management succeeded, and I think that's fine.
Yeah, it's incredibly worrying. I mean, there was an internal letter to BioWare staff from BioWare General Manager Casey Hudson a few days later, which further addressed the situation. He acknowledged the development issues and pledged that the studio will do better, which is a step in the right direction. But I mean, after that PR statement, it's, you know, something has to change because it
almost felt like he had to say it.
Yeah,
who knows
exactly.
Who knows if he actually believes that?
Well, that wasn't a public statement. That was an internal letter that was then leaked to Kotaku. So it's more likely to be, you know, a bit more from the heart than a PR stunt. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to get that story in there because I read that story on the train yesterday, and I revoked my Twitter vacation rule at the minute that I'm having, and came back to write some thoughts about it because it really irks.
It's journalism. You can't. It never stops.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's talk about something good. Let's do Feels Good Man Clap. Okay, we've got two stories in here this time. A Skyrim grandma.
I have one to add.
Okay, right. Skyrim grandma YouTuber will be immortalized as an Elder Scrolls 6 NPC. So if you must have seen her at this point. She's like it's this little old lady who sits playing Skyrim, and she uploads YouTube videos about it. There was like a public petition to get her immortalized in Elder Scrolls 6 as an NPC, and she came in. She was invited to the Bethesda studios, met with Todd Howard. There was a cute little video on Twitter of them having like a discussion, and she's gonna be an NPC, which I can't wait. We're not going to see this game till 2024.
Or something like that.
Whatever. Yeah, it's I thought it was quite a wholesome story. The other one, which I woke up to this morning or this afternoon, because I'm a horrendous human, a horrendous human.
Stupidest story ever.
I woke up at 5 past noon today, and the first thing I saw on my phone was Owen sending me this on Facebook, which is Danny Dyer is going to feature in Rage 2. This is like a voice pack. I don't know is it like a playable character voice pack?
I think
assume
so.
It is.
I don't think they've recorded. I doubt they've recorded all of Walker's dialogue, but
no. How the hell do you remember his name? It's the most generic, like, first person protagonist
Walker.
character name.
Might as well be called
Walker, yeah.
I mean, I was going to say Brian. Brian would actually be pretty. Unique.
Brian is pretty memorable.
I'd play with
I
Brian.
mean, as far as video game character names go.
But here's the thing, right? This was seen as a sort of gimmick, right? And the sort of like, oh, well, here's the funny thing we've put in. I'm playing with this on.
Oh, absolutely. Like, this is the thing. When I used to be like really against sort of this sort of like memey shit in games. Like, if I was to play a game and it had like a really goofy cosmetic item, I'd have been like, I don't want that, because that's gonna take me out of my immersion.
Yeah, some people are totally into that, and I'm not. Like, making yourself look stupid in the cutscene, not for me.
But for Rage 2, I feel like this fully like engages with the full meta meme of Rage 2 just not being taken seriously whatsoever. And I'm well up for just playing the entire game with Danny Dyer's voice in my ears, because some of the voice lines are absolutely just incredible.
It's not even like he's reading from the script. There's so much conviction, but it's like he's so calm at the same time.
Get fucking... I'm not even going to try and do... I'll do it in Injustice. I'll try and edit some of the things in later.
The best one... I think the best one is at the end, where he kind of punches someone so hard that they just explode, and just really softly goes, twat.
Oh, there's such a subtle... If Americans won't get this at all, but there's such a subtle...
It was only released on the Bethesda UK Twitter.
Yeah, I can imagine why. Yeah, I retweeted it and said, like, this has sold Rage 2 to me, and Bethesda UK liked my tweet. It genuinely has. Like, Rage 2 for me was like a pick up a few weeks after release when it's cheaper, because I don't care that much.
Rage 2 is going to surprise you. I've been following it. It'll surprise you.
I will genuinely... Yeah, I've stayed off social media to keep up to date with it, so I'm genuinely interested. I will buy this for Danny Dyer.
I was excited before Danny Dyer, and I was like, the main concern that I had was that all the characters looked interesting except the main character. Problem solved.
Well, problem solved now.
I want him to do. I want a petition for him to be just the main character, but I don't even want him to voice the main character. I want him to be the main character. I want it to be Rage 2, where you play as Danny Dyer. Where the fuck... he just wakes up at the start of the game, like, oh, this isn't fucking Albert Square. Where the fuck am I? Oh, look at this. He gets in the car. Oh, it's a canny motor.
Oh my god, it's going to be class. I can't wait. Alright, yeah, go on. What was your addition?
Well, I've got a final story. It's just a quick one. The Sekiro difficulty debate has been going on, which is like a separate thing with it, like saying,
I meant to bring this
like,
up. Yeah.
Is it too hard? Is it not hard enough? Does it need an easy mode? Does it need an assist mode? I personally think that if you'd asked me a year ago, I'd have said no. But now I actually think that's a really good... I think games do need assist modes. But there was this... Like, they're saying, people, it's too hard, it's too hard, it's too hard. And then someone was, like, making, like, comments towards... From Software getting a lot of comments saying, you know, there's a... I don't know about rising amount, because there's probably always been them, but you know that there's like a rising amount of like gamers who are disabled, who can't like use like, who Microsoft are now really helping accommodate with their like adaptive controllers, I think they're called.
Yeah, the adaptive controller.
Yeah, so they're saying, what about like disabled gamers? Like, they don't stand a chance in Sekiro. Someone said that, and then it was time for one of them to be like, "You're not going to say that about me. Fuck you." So he gets. I don't necessarily know who it was, but I think he's quadriplegic. So that's quite a debilitating a disease.
Yeah.
He makes this video where he's playing on the adaptive. Actually, I don't think it's a video. It's just a report. But he's playing on the adaptive controller. He walks into the boss arena of Corrupted Monk, and he no-hits it and kills it in a minute.
Jesus. Madness. I mean...
And then he was like, it doesn't need easy mode. But it wasn't like a serious thing. It wasn't like, this is why it doesn't need easy mode. But
yeah,
I think based on what I've seen, like I follow my like the Gamers of Newcastle page on Facebook, and there were people playing it. They were like, I don't think this game's for me. I just don't think it's for me. And I'm like, just try.
Yeah.
Get better.
I mean, there is. I'm going to touch on the this whole like debate slightly at the end here, because again, I think I would have also been in the same boat as said like, no, it doesn't need an easy mode. If you'd asked me a year ago, but I've been to, having played games like Celeste, which have that has an assist mode. You can toggle it so that you have an extra jump. You can slow the game speed down and things like that. And last December I went to a place near in Sale, which is near Salford. I went to visit a charity called Everyone Can, and they enable disabled gamers to basically play games by using technology such as the adaptive controller. Or I met with a guy who he had cerebral palsy and he couldn't use his hands to play games, and I watched him play Dirt 3 just by using his eyes, just because he looked. I think it's not Steel Sea. I don't know. There was an eye tracking thing, so he could play the game by using his eyes, and it was incredible. So I think I saw a tweet earlier that really annoyed me. That was unless you can show me validated data that there's like a significant number of disabled people that play games, then I don't think we need it. I was like, you don't need. That's ridiculous that you need any sort of validation that disabled people exist.
Exactly.
It's just, that's stupid. So I think, and there's also the argument of that Sekiro doesn't need any sort of assist modes, because that ruins the if there's any sort of crutch there, then it's always going to be in the back. It's like microtransactions. It's always in the back of your mind that it's there, that you could always fall back on it. I think you just need some like self control. Like if the assists are there, I think Sekiro should have assists. Things like slowing down the game speed, maybe having extra revives, maybe extended iframes, things like that. But have them as toggles in a subset menu that you have to go and find manually, not something that it tells you about in like a tutorial thing. And then just have some self control. If you don't have the self control to keep them off, and then say that it disrupts the game's creative vision, that's on you. It's not on the developer. Games should be inclusive.
Exactly, yeah.
As things are going towards with Google Stadia. Games are going to everyone. Games are for everyone, and you should be able to tailor them to how you if as long as it these features are genuinely to enable you to just even basically access the game in the first place. Then yeah, that should be a thing.
I also think that maybe having an assist mode there, this is weird psychology, right? But I think it might be true. Sekiro, as it stands, has like no difficulty settings. Well, it technically does.
It does, but it's a hidden thing. You start on the easiest mode, you can make it harder.
Let's just say it was like that the entire way through, and these people who are sort of more casual gamers kind of pick it up and go, yeah, I can't do this. This isn't for me. This is too difficult. I don't like it. Yeah. They're just gonna leave it because and they don't want to experience the rest of the game because they can't be bothered or they don't have the time. If the assist mode's there, then those who want to get through the game will be able to. But then I also feel like there's a subset of people who would then be motivated to get through because they don't want to use the assist button. That was me.
Yeah, I get that.
That was me as in a few games, which was like, are you finding this difficult? You can turn the difficulty down. Fuck off.
Yeah, Donkey Kong's like that. It's Donkey Kong
Tropical Freeze.
Tropical Freeze. If you struggle with a level too long, it then unlocks like the next one for you and says you can come back and do this one later. And it's like, no, I will finish this one until I get like I have to earn right to the next level.
Isn't that with like Cranky Kong? You can play as Cranky Kong and he's a lot easier.
Yeah, Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, whatever it's called, has that. There's like you can play as Mario, Luigi, Toad. There's two Toads. The second like Toadette is, I think she like jumps higher, and then there's Nabbit who literally just can't fall off. He's ridiculous. He's like that. But yeah, something like that. That like enables younger players to access a game that otherwise wouldn't be, because it'd be too difficult. So accessibility features definitely have a place in games, in my eyes, anyway.
Definitely. I've totally come around on it, and they should be there.
Yeah. All right, that's the end of the podcast. Social media rundown. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I am at JoshyBoyles2. If you want to follow me on YouTube, which you should, because I have lots of plans, follow me at youtube.com/JoshBoyles. If hopefully at the same time as this podcast goes up, there should also be a little neat news rundown bulletin video, which is like all of our news stories, but condensed down to just the facts. No opinion. If you want the opinion, from now on, come to the podcast. If you want just the facts, go watch that video.
Yeah. The uncut.
I might talk
the uncut
version. Yeah. And I've got all sorts of plans for videos coming, so stay tuned on that YouTube channel and my Twitter. Owen, where can people find you?
You can find me at Twitter at Zanzibar Crumpet. And as Josh saw earlier, the streaming game it's a coming. It's a coming. I've been having some crazy ideas for what to stream next, because I am going to clean up Sekiro. Now that I've done it, there's nothing... I feel like I've overcome the challenges of Sekiro. There's nothing really left. I just need to clean up the achievements and I'll be done with it. But having a hard game again made me realise how special hard games can be for me, just because of the feelings that I get when I beat them. Celeste did this when I 100%ed Celeste. Was a beautiful moment. Being able to beat the final boss of Sekiro was great. But I've had a really, really stupid idea. I'm gonna try and stream and beat Boshi.
Boshi? Oh no, you're not. Okay, right. Well, Owen's gonna kill himself by the end of next week, so
I can do it.
Okay, if you say so. Definitely watch that on stream, because as someone who knows Owen personally, he does not do well with anything too ragey. So
no, I don't do well with multiplayer rage. Single player rage just makes me sad.
Okay. So if you want to see Owen cry on stream, go and watch this one. We need to do some co-op streams as well.
I was gonna say that as well. That'll be great.
Yeah.
I hope they make the co-stream publicly available at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's enough from us this week. Join us. We might have one next week. We'll see. Definitely go on my YouTube for the news roundups, which are supposed to be weekly. We'll see how long this lasts. Thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you later.
See you later. Bye.